We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
It's the Weiliotis podcast.
I like it.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Weiliotis podcast, where we talk about a variety of things, but above all else, we share our love for the motion picture. We have a really exciting episode. We have a special guest on. We're going to be talking about the Oscars this year. But before we get into all that, let me, of course, bring on my co-host, the one and only Mikey Wheel. How you doing today, my friend?
Hi, doing good. Yeah, very excited for this episode. You know, the Oscars are my Super Bowl every year, so
Right.
so no, I'm super excited to have this episode. This is the first year where I've watched like almost all of the ones or the ones I wanted to watch. And I'm very excited for our guest as well, because I was like, there's no better person to bring on for the Oscars than our guest. Should we bring her on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Everybody, give it up for Lindsay, our guest for today.
Welcome.
And
hi, I'm very excited to be here. I talk to myself and the few that will listen to about this so much that like it's just really exciting to talk to other people who care.
I know that every year Lindsay does a big red carpet reviews and all that. I never watch much about the red carpet, just because the Oscars is already too long as it is. But yeah, no, I'm very excited to have Lindsay on. We're also all in a Facebook chat and have been for the past 6 or 7 years for the Oscars, where we have a bracket and we do all that.
Is it that long?
I think the two of you won first and second place. I run the bracket, I organize everything, I do the chat, and then it takes me like 2 or 3 days after to double check everything. So I'm just like over it at that point.
I'm just feeling a little bit after this weekend that like I know it's only been a day, but I'm already feeling like oh, I need a break from this.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, the amount of
I don't know. It's weird because this is a very I feel like every year it's a unique Oscar event, but this one in particular, it was, obviously there's the main controversy, but then there's new things they tried. There's old things that we kind of see every year, but it was unique to say the least, and I'm excited to talk about it with you guys.
And we are going to talk about the thing that everybody else is talking about, Susan Sarandon's shoes.
Yeah.
Did you see those shoes? Just magical.
There? I didn't see them there.
I don't know.
Everyone's talking about it. That's all anyone's talking about.
So many memes. No, it's so upsetting to me that like you see the red carpet and it's like Kourtney Kardashian, Travis Barker, Megan Fox, and Machine Gun Kelly, and you're like, okay, you guys have nothing to do with the film industry. So let me guess, you couldn't have invited the caterers for the movies, most of the sound people, most of the lighting people. You couldn't have invited the producers. You couldn't. There's so many people that don't make it to the Oscars, but then we invite like everybody from like Real Housewives of New York, and they're the ones.
Hey.
Yeah, hands off. No, I mean honestly though, they gotta do whatever they can to increase ratings, So like,
I don't want to get ahead of myself before we talk about what we're watching, but I really feel like a housewife could have elevated things. No, but it's interesting, like what you were saying about that, because it's like they didn't care enough to invite the lead of one of the films until 6 days prior. The Rachel Ziegler, who plays, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, who plays Maria in West Side Story, directed by, Steven Spielberg. So it's not like it was some little indie flick. She got invited like 6 days before. So the fact that she made it. Yeah, she made a joke about it on the telecast. So the fact that like yes, you have like people like Travis Barker and like those whores from Euphoria. I'm talking about the boys and the girls. I hate those damn kids. And then you have the craft people who weren't even like allowed to get their awards on stage during the actual telecast. But yes, please show me what Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian, like what their tongues look like today, like on this particular
True love.
Well, to be fair, Travis Barker did. He was playing. He's playing the drums.
He was.
Well, I was confused by that because everyone was saying that was the reason they were going, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get what they're trying to do here. I watched the whole show. I never saw him.
Yeah. he was on drums, but let's admit that if he weren't on drums, they still would have been at the Oscars either way. So
Oh yeah, true.
Was he in the pit, the orchestra pit?
No, he was. They
So-
announced.
Was he like a DJ?
Nope. They announced.
No, so they had like a separate band playing, and it was led by Robert Glasper, who's a producer. So it was, and he was playing on drums. So there was like a separate like band that was playing some of the music.
Totally missed that one.
They only showed him like 2 or 3 times max, maybe. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say, towards the second half of the Oscars, they had a very big band, almost like an orchestra playing, and then before that, in the first half, they showed a band which was like 4 or 5 people, and as the camera is kind of like going back to the whole band, you just see Travis Barker on the drum set rocking out, and I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. He's doing a solo tour this year. I forget who exactly. I think he's touring with Machine Gun Kelly or somebody, but it's like literally and Travis Barker or whatever, and it's like just him doing drums.
When you said solo, I was like, so people are gonna go watch this man drum by himself?
No, that's literally it. It's gonna be like Travis Barker going on before the big band, which I've seen Blink before. So I mean, like he like I've seen Blink where he came out and did a 10-minute drum solo to Outkast, and like the stage he was on was flipping around, but like I don't need to watch him for like 45 minutes like drumming to like Wu-Tang.
We also can't devote any more of this time that's about film's biggest night to anyone who's Kardashian adjacent. So
Right.
Yep. Oh my God, the amount of people. We are going to talk about this. There's an upset that Lindsay and I both agree on about tonight that we're going to about Oscars. We're going to talk about that really goes to show that the people who vote in the Oscars are either 13-year-old girls or are all mothers and fathers of 13-year-old girls. And we'll talk about that later, but I think that is the Oscars. You know, it's what sells. It's like, do we want to invite the person who was the head lighting person on Licorice Pizza who actually put in like 24 hours a day for 3 months and deserves to be there? No, because nobody cares about them. But there was that guy who just, tripped on a Subway sandwich on TikTok and has 18 million views. We want him on the red carpet because that will get the kids to watch. And that is what's wrong with America.
Well, that's the whole thing about the Oscars, though. They the Academy, like, they want to please everybody. Like that's. I feel like they've lost like core fans over the years because what you just said. Like, you're right. They could be highlighting like people behind the scenes, but why do that when you could, like you just said, you could have like the Kardashians or be showing them, or like it's like I said, it's trying to please everybody, but you end up kind of just pleasing nobody.
Does Liza Minnelli, that's who's behind you, right, Tom?
Yes.
Does she not look like Kris? Who's the mom?
Kris Jenner?
Kris Jenner's sister.
Kris Jenner's sister? I guess a little bit.
It's the haircut. Okay. I feel like they could play each other in something.
And the matching face work. Well, I don't know if Liza's doing okay. Like, Kris is a little more upright.
Lady Gaga handled it well, and
perfectly.
I know. I picked this as my background because that was probably my favorite moment of the night, or at least like the one that it was just so nice.
It was very touching. When she came on stage, I just got nervous. It was like when they had what's his name?
Oh, you thinking of Kirk Douglas like a couple years ago?
I almost said Kurt Russell, and I'm like, Kurt Russell is not.
Not yet.
When they had him come on, like, I actually I get that he's like a legend of film, but like that just made me like sad because it just felt like they were trotting out this 95-year-old man who didn't know where he was and couldn't speak. And I was worried when I saw Liza come out in that wheelchair that like, because we hadn't seen her in a while, we didn't know what her like current state is. And this is not at all to sound like an ableist, but like I just like hadn't seen her in a while, and I was like, oh God. But as we know, Lady Gaga is like the elder whisperer. Like she's
Tony Bennett.
Tony, I've heard Tony Bennett is like getting a little, like, part of the reason he was retiring is because it's getting harder, he's getting older. So she's like the nicest grandchild that is like willing to put up with like every antic from like their grandparents because they just love them so much. And it was very, very sweet when she was like, I got you. And he's like, I know.
They handled it very. It's interesting too, because if you think about it, our parents are watching this and they're probably thinking, I knew Liza Minnelli when she was 30 and it felt like yesterday. Like, can you believe that in like what feels like tomorrow, we're going to be watching this with our grown-up kids and it's going to be like Leonardo DiCaprio up there in a wheelchair, just like getting wheeled out. And he's just like, TikToker, where are we right now? And like,
you might be the only ones watching it because they're not getting those younger gens like they seem to be hoping for. I think the biggest issue with what they're, I guess it's like, I think what's frustrating is like I'm 36. Okay. I've been watching the Oscars since I was in high school. I've been like an avid like fan. Even if I didn't necessarily like watch the movies, then I just enjoyed like the pomp and circumstance of it all. So I've been following this for like a long time. And I feel like as long as I've been watching, the discussion has always been about how do we get younger viewers? How do we get younger viewers? What do we do? What do we do? And it feels like everything every year is some sort of like just a desperate attempt to get this younger audience to tune in. One of the biggest ones I remember is the disaster that was Anne Hathaway and James Franco hosting. I don't remember what year that was, but they were
2011, I think. Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. So, but like they were definitely like on the like they're probably a little older than me, but like they were on the younger side when like you're used to having like Billy Crystal all these years. There was nothing broken about Billy Crystal doing the Oscars. That's just kind of like what it is. And my theory is that people like us who are interested in this, like it transcends what age you are and where you are in your life. Like I was going to watch the Oscars when I'm 17. I'm still watching them now at 36, and I'm probably going to still be watching them at 50. I think that people that are interested in film and people are interested in these things are going to watch regardless. And those of us that are really into it are going to watch it. Like, we don't care if you're trying to shorten it to make it more digestible. Like I would watch a 5-hour show. I start watching the pre-show at 2 p.m. That's how much I can't get enough.
That's over 9.5 hours. Yeah.
I watch the people on E make candy boards look like red carpets. Like it's, there's nothing you can do at this point to get me to not watch. And maybe there isn't a giant influx, but I have to wonder, like, even you have to think like 30, 40 years ago, was there a bunch of 20-year-olds? There was like, I can't wait to get home and watch the Oscars. Probably not. Like you get into it at some point when movies that you watch that are in your age realm maybe get nominated. And yes, you always have to throw in those people. I remember the first time I saw Miley Cyrus at the Oscars, I was like, what the hell is she doing there? And this was pre like Wrecking Ball Miley, but like post Hannah Montana. And, it was like her time to like get clammed up and go and pretend she was like an adult and, go with her handsome boyfriend in his tux. And there's always going to be a little bit of an element of that, of throwing in a few of these younger people of whatever generation is the generation at the time. And yeah, maybe that gets a couple people, but like now we're in the age of like, you don't have to tune in to see your favorite celebs on there, because all of these young people, if they want to watch the kids from Euphoria announce a category, they'll watch it on their phone the next day. Like they're
That's
not
a
the
great
highlights.
point. That's an excellent point. Because is it Gen Z that's after millennial? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we're on to Gen Z, right? I think
because
Mikey, to our kids' generation. I don't know what it is, but like,
well, I was saying because Gen Z, it seems like a lot of people are like entertainment is YouTube, entertainment is Facebook, entertainment is TikTok. Like movies, sure, but like not as much as social media and as much as So like that's a great point where it's like
10-second clips, like reviews.
I think that'll come. And I think what they're doing is, instead of attracting this whole new audience that they keep talking about every year that they want to get, they're just further alienating the audience that they already have that cares about stuff. Yeah. And like, I don't know anything about production design or film or sound editing or whatever, but like, I appreciate that those people get like 5 minutes out of the whole year to feel like a celebrity for a second. And so I thought right off the bat, that was a really stupid mistake on their end to do what they did. I listened to the producer talk about it, and it was interesting to hear him talk, because when you hear just like, oh, they're limiting all these categories, you're like, how could they do that? If you watch the ABC pre-show, they had more of like the behind the scenes, because they were the official network that was showing it. So like they had a little bit more than the E people, who it was like pure fluff of like, what thing on a runway did you see that you think would look good on this person? It was all like fictional. But ABC had a lot of good behind the scenes stuff, and they sat down with him, and he was talking about how like it was the first all Black production team putting on the Oscars. And he was talking about the things that he thought were important. And he was saying like, we're not just eliminating these awards. These people are still going to get their due. We didn't totally understand what that meant until we saw it in the show. And frankly, I watched the whole show and I still don't understand how that all kind of went down. It looked seamless on TV, but it must have been so odd.
There's got to be so much work behind it.
And I almost wonder, I'm like, how much, and again, after what ended up happening with how long the show went on, I think because of some speeches that they didn't cut off, like, I'm like, how much time did you save? Like, if it was 5 minutes, like I'll give you back those 5 minutes, take them.
Yeah, because I think It wasn't shorter really than like any other year. I don't think
It was
it wasn't like
longer.
yeah, it was like
20
longer.
minutes longer than last year, they said.
Yeah,
Didn't they?
it was literally longer than last year's. That's
Mhm.
hilarious.
And so two things. One, I'm wondering, we talk about younger, like when we were 14, we did want to know who was winning these awards, but like, are there a lot of 14-year-olds today, especially 14-year-olds, their generations, whatever? Are there a lot of them who care about sound design and production design and all of this? Like, I feel
No, but
like,
it was never about that. It was about like
yeah,
watching like Leonardo DiCaprio has been getting nominated for stuff since he was a teenager.
it's
So
the
like,
bougie. It's like people want to
Well,
see
also,
what people are getting in their gift bag and who's wearing what designer clothes. Like,
you also made a good point earlier, Lindsay, when you're like nowadays you can see anything you want whenever you want. Where go back 20 years or so, and like you might have had to tune in to something like the Oscars to see any kind of event like this. So
yep.
it's like a little less special because of that, I guess, and that can go for a lot of things nowadays.
well, and
That
I think just like
the
the whole oh, sorry, Mikey, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, 20 years ago, in our parents' generation, they would tell us, Wizard of Oz came out one time a year on television, and you had to sit down and watch it, and that was it. We
Mm.
had video stores and Netflix DVDs, and it was a little easier. Now everybody has
DVDs,
everything. Yep, we had
Yeah.
VHS to DVDs, and now you can just say Siri, Alexa, play anything. The thing that's so interesting is like, I remember the Janet Jackson thing that happened at the Super Bowl, right? That happened, and then you waited to like, hear more about it or whatever, something like that, right? It happened, and if you missed it, you missed the drama that went down and everything. Now we saw the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing that happened. And in our chat group, we're like, what just happened? All I saw was a lot of bleeping and a lot of cutting. And within 5 minutes, everybody in our Facebook chat group had videos of Australian and Japanese telecasting of that scene unedited going around. So within 5 minutes, the whole entire world knew because of Twitter exactly what Will Smith said and
Mhm.
exactly what he did. And
Mhm.
no, we
Yeah.
didn't have that years ago. You had to wait till till it was
Right.
out.
To see that boob pop out again. Yeah, and I do think it's interesting when you hear them talk about trying to get a younger audience and all these strides that they're making, and then to see some of the decisions that they make to do things that completely go against what they're talking about. So, for example, I still think it's crazy. It's not the Academy's fault, but I think it's crazy that Lin-Manuel Miranda and the people behind Encanto chose to submit that ballad over the most popular song that literally merges things that adults like, TikTok, and everything by not submitting We Don't Talk About Bruno for Best Original Song.
Even pressure would have been good.
I absolutely believe if they had submitted that song, they'd be winning. He'd be an EGOT. He wasn't there. It would have been fortunate, but whatever. To put that song on the live performance at 10:15 p.m. when anybody who cares about it would have gone to bed already. That's the performance you open the show with. You have a couple of kids that are stragglers that get into bed and their parents are like, okay, fine, you can watch the Encanto song before you get up to bed. I'm like, that was one of your chances right there to reel in your younger audience, and you put the song on at 10:15 and added Megan Thee Stallion to it, who I think is great, but is like not appropriate for.
You think she's good?
I think she's a good rapper.
Oh, she's great, yo. She's great.
And I think she's very talented in her own way, and I think it's cool that she just finished college.
But who said like we need the WAP person to come in and
well, exactly,
and feature in Encanto, a children's
Well,
song?
that's where it feels awkward because you still have like the what you expect from the Oscars, and then it's like, oh, by the way, here's Megan Thee Stallion. Relevance.
It was a very desperate attempt to go like, look how hip and cool we are. Like that was very like, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. But like the thing that's weird is like kids and adults alike love that Bruno song, and they're doing all these things to it online, and like you didn't need it. Like
we don't need it. Everybody loves it. It's hip hop as it is. It's a children hip hop fun song as it is. Yeah.
And I'm not. I know, Mikey, how you feel, but like, I personally love Beyonce. I just think that like I've never been the same since seeing like Homecoming. Like that to me was just like, it just showed you like what you can do with a performance that like I didn't know was possible. I thought her performance was very, very cool. I don't know that it needed to open the show again. I think maybe like that would have been a better vehicle for Encanto. And also I've heard just from like the things that I read after, because I love reading the recaps of like from Vanity Fair, different people where they're like, inside the building, this is what you didn't see. In the commercial breaks, these things happened and these people talked to each other at the party and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that someone said that was in there, they said that performance was great, but they're like, for all of us, we were just watching it on a screen inside the theater. And so they were experiencing the same thing we were experiencing at home. And she said, it just looked like a really cool Beyonce video. But the point of the opening number is the show is that it gets people like hyped up. So they said right off the bat, the show started on a very flat note because there was no excitement in the theater because they all sat there and watched on a screen. And I thought the concept was amazing. It's like Beyonce in all her dancers in wearing the color of tennis balls out in a court in Compton. That's like pretty, I thought that was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Pulled that off.
You know, I mean, it would have been cooler too, maybe even if like
she just done that there. I don't know.
Yeah, did like maybe did it on the actual stage or started off video and then like transitioned to stage.
Like, yeah. I like that.
Like,
they
so
do that in America's Got Talent a lot, where they'll start outside and come inside. Or
like the VMAs. Do you remember like back in the day when like Eminem was like out on the street with a million people that looked like him and like walked into there? My mom loves nothing more than being at some sort of performance where people walk down the aisles. Like that's just like a thing of like, ooh.
That's why she's not allowed, because she'd be like,
Eminem. So I again, maybe we didn't feel it necessarily at home, but that was something that they said that was a big kind of like meh in the auditorium, was that like you didn't have that initial kind of like thing to get everybody hyped up. Like in the past, that would be when a performer like a Neil Patrick Harris or a Billy Crystal would like perform a song and dance number and fill the whole stage. And I also thought the stage was kind of weird. It seemed like there was so much empty, unutilized space. Which is weird because I've actually, not to like name drop here, not name drop, but I've been to that theater before. If you ever go to LA, you can actually tour the Dolby Theater. It's kind of a ripoff, but it's like really fun just to be like, I was in the theater where the Oscars are, and you get to like go on the stairs and like you can go in different parts of the theater. It's like $30 for like a half hour. The Paramount Tour is more worth it. I did the Paramount one.
You would go on that tour.
Oh my God, it was so fun. I went with my mom, my sister. We did the 2-hour one. I'm like, so no one wants to do the 4-hour version? Like Paramount does like a 1, a 2, and a 4-hour. And my mom and sister were like, no, absolutely not. You can also do a midnight ghost tour where you tour it in the dark.
I would do that. 100%.
But anyway, so I did a tour of the Dolby Theater, and like that theater is actually very small. It doesn't hold that many people. It doesn't hold nearly as many as you think. I forget what the number is now, but it's like compared to like a stadium or like anything like that, it's tiny. So to have all of that excess stage not being utilized, and then to have all that big furniture because they were all in like cabaret style seating, it's normally a straight up like auditorium. So they had to take out seats, I'm guessing, to do those little pockets of whatever. And I still am unsure if that was a COVID related change or if that was because they're like, we got to mix it up and make it look a little cooler. And maybe in a response to like the Golden Globes didn't happen this year, which is where people normally sit and they drink and they do whatever. So maybe they were trying to make it more loungy. But I also felt like because that they had very few celebs, it seemed like, actually in the front there, because they didn't fit as many people as they normally did.
A lot of the nominees weren't they sitting in that area, or at least, you know, like obviously like Will Smith was, and like other people that were in some of the bigger categories. So I don't know if not all of them, but a lot of them were in that area. But yeah,
it just seemed like it didn't hold as many people as like normal. And like it used to be back then, you always knew the front row was going to be like Jack Nicholson, like making a face at the camera, and Meryl Streep, and like whoever the ingenues were like that year, you know, the Jennifer Lawrences and the whoever. And then, you know, the sound people and the tech people like were in there somewhere too. And it just felt like that, like the upstairs was like the poor people of the Titanic. And then you had like a couple of like big celebs on like velvety lounge furniture, and then like an abyss in between. And then this giant ass stage that was like completely underutilized, even though you had 3 hosts, because again, you had no real performances up there happening.
I think it felt very empty because Troy, Katzur, is that he say his last name?
Yeah.
From Coda.
Yeah. So he will definitely talk a lot about that. I think, Lindsay, you thought it felt so empty because the woman standing next to him was standing directly on top of him while he gave his whole entire speech. And she kept thinking that he was done and trying to hand him the award. At one point, she handed him the award and he just took it and signed with the rest of his speech with one hand, because he could tell that she didn't know, like, I mean, she was very out of place at first and didn't know where to go. But as he was talking, every time he would like stop signing for a second, she would go, "Oh, award? Like, is that it?" So at some point, he just took it,
Yeah.
and that was just so awkward and uncomfortable to watch. But it was also like a Liza Minnelli moment where it was also just like super cute to watch. This elderly lady on stage giving an award. She was super funny, and
I also thought the stage, I could be wrong, but I thought the stage maybe wasn't as high as it normally is. And maybe it was
Yeah.
just because of the bulky furniture. It always used to be that you'd have these people in the audience like looking up at them, and you'd have this little staircase that they had to get up with their big dresses, and it felt like a middle school auditorium, like riser, like they weren't that far above them. And not saying you need to like King and I style, like have your head above everybody else, but like again, there was something about the grandeur of it that was missing. And I actually thought the red carpet like looked nicer, as far as like, I'm always interested in what they do with the set design. I'm always curious about what new things they can make into the shape of an Oscar statue. And they had those, I don't know if anybody noticed them. They had these kind of strange 80s looking to me, like acrylic Oscars with these different like levels kind of stuck together. And it just seemed like there was like 4 of them plunked there. And I'm like, all right, is that it? Like, I don't know. It felt a little lackluster to me, like right off the bat, when you're talking about like, oh, we're trying to attract all these people. I'm like, then like, let's put our best foot forward here. Don't give the teens some acrylic Oscar statues. Like, what are we doing? But like, again, I don't do this for a job. I'm sure a lot of work went into it. I always think about the behind the scenes thing of this. And it's like, no matter what, someone's job it was to sit there and freaking shine up all those acrylic statues. But it just wasn't like, there was a lack of a wow factor for me in a lot of ways. I feel
I always like the high stages because you always got to see what male celebrity would like help the Lady Gaga go up on stage. Like they'd be walking and just out. Who is it?
Hugh Jackman was always a great one.
Yep.
He was always like a gentleman, and his lovely tux, like being like, "Oh yes, let me help." He was there when Jennifer Lawrence fell.
Yep. Oh yeah. I was gonna say, but when you talk about like production and everything going on behind the scenes, not terribly relatable to the Oscars, but Comedy Central used to have their specials that were called Comedy Central Presents. They were always filmed out in New York City. After that, they started filming them in Boston for a little while at the Royale, downstairs at the Royale, and they were called the Half Hour. And you would get free tickets. They were just free tickets to pack the whole entire place and just make sure that everybody was there and they were laughing out loud and doing all of that. I will tell you that watching comedy specials 22 minutes on television is wildly different than being at a 22-minute recording. I imagine the same with talk shows. I imagine the same with anything. You get there, you sit down in your seat. They have everybody laugh for about 5 to 10 minutes where they're going to, show later. So you're just sitting there and they go laugh and everybody goes, ha 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 ha. And you laugh and clap for nobody. You do all of that and nothing happens. And
they
then
can like record it.
And then they record it. Yep. And then the comic came out. A couple comics would mess up their intro or their first joke or picking up the microphone. They go, let me try that again. They go backstage. They get introduced again. I also, Lindsay, I feel you'll love this. I went to an American Idol audition probably 10 years ago with a friend of, no, not me. Excuse me.
Oh, I was like,
excuse me.
I'm sorry, no offense.
No, I
just never heard you sing in all the years that I've known you, so that's why.
Because they cut my audition. That's why I was too good. It wasn't silly enough. No, I went with my friend who I was playing music with. We went to the American Idol audition at Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence, and whoever the hell the hosts were at that time, they were all showing up in Escalades. They weren't in Providence. They weren't in Rhode Island. They didn't get out of the cars, but we all stood there and went. It was pouring rain all morning, and before we even got inside in the pouring rain, we stood out there for about an hour or two while we gasped and pretended that Randy Jackson was stepping outside of an Escalade. And like, once you're behind the scenes of stuff, it just completely ruins what it's like.
It's like the thing of like never meet your idols, like you just don't want to know. So I don't know. I always enjoy the red carpet more because I think there's like a little bit more going on, and like I just felt like there was like a lot of things kind of missing from that broadcast, like even from the get-go. And I feel like if the slap hadn't happened, I feel like all people would be talking about is like the pace of the show and it kind of being a little bit messy and disjointed, like from the beginning. I feel like that would like dominate the conversation if you were even interested in talking about this, like, and again, I think the people who are, I've heard from a lot of people, just from like people I talk to or podcasts I listen to with like about all of this stuff. And like everyone has kind of universally said, like, we love this no matter what. We're going to watch it no matter what. So just give the people what they want. Show us like even the things they just like, I didn't like that they were showing, and I've heard some people say they liked it, some people didn't. Like, they introduced all the best films. They didn't even have a person introduce them. They had they literally just like rolled clips. And I've heard some people say, well, award season is long, and at the end of it, do you really need to watch Kirsten Dunst one more time, talk about the power of the dog? Like, what is there left to do? But
they didn't even show the best clips either for some of the movies. You're like, that's the clip.
At the clips that they choose. I'm like, who's
did they watch the movie? Did they see any of it?
When they just showed Kirsten Dunst crying, going, I don't want him to go with Phil. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I liked it better that they had like an actor from the movie like announce the song. Like, that feels more like of a connection or like something. But they spent a lot, and I don't want to like go too far ahead. I know there's different points we're going to touch on, but like, to make so much of an emphasis on these things about reunions, I can list at least 3 reunions that they insisted on having, which, by the way, personal pet peeve of mine, I don't enjoy when they make a big deal about celebrating a reunion for something that is an odd anniversary number.
Oh man,
when they said it's the 38th anniversary of White Man Can't Jump, I was like, give me 35 or 40.
They did that for Pulp Fiction too, 2028, 27,
Pulp Fiction,
yeah.
They did it a couple years ago when out of nowhere, they had Marshall Mathers himself stroll up on the Academy Award stage. It was the 17th anniversary of that song winning an Oscar. Again, not 15, not 20. Let's stick with 17. That makes sense. And performed that song with zero context. And I'm like, these are the moments that it literally looks like you are just grasping at whatever you can get to get people interested in this, because this makes no sense. So like, that to me is very odd. And then, I mean, I don't even know if you were planning on talking about the James Bond of it all with the athletes. Like, it's just like, again, do you think, like, have you checked in on any of the people that are interested in this show? Do you think any of us care about Shaun White and Kelly Slater and Tony Hawk? Like, I don't care. Maybe you care a little bit, but what connection do those men have to the Bond series? Which, by the way, there are more than one living Bonds at this moment that could have introduced it.
Roger Moore's still alive, right?
You had Dame Judi Dench in the audience. Why wouldn't she have?
That's a great point.
Bond clip?
We could have teased Idris Elba. Idris Elba could have done it and then been like, by the way, I'm Bond.
Roger
Moore is not alive. My bad.
No, that's a great point. Is that, I mean, the people who grew up watching the Oscars, the 14-year-olds who were excited about the production design and the sound design, are not the people who are watching ESPN and going to Celtics games.
Retired athletes. They're not even young athletes. They're old. When was the last time? Like, it's Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Well, Shaun White is relevant because
he just retired.
He was just in the Olympics and he's dating Nina somebody.
He didn't even bring her. Like, then if he was going to do it, he should have brought her to the carpet. He's like, she's working. I brought my mom. We don't care about your mom, Shaun White. Like, what are you doing?
They're like the new it couple. Yeah.
Right. So there were things like that I'm like, if this is what you're going for, this is a real mess. The other reunion that I found so stupid was the Godfather thing, which I think the Godfather thing was a 50th. So that's that.
And there's a new show coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, you had Francis Ford Coppola, you have Al Pacino and his long ass hair, and you have Robert De Niro. The movie they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of, Robert De Niro wasn't in. He also didn't speak. So what was the point? Robert De Niro was in The Godfather 2. He wasn't in The Godfather 1 that came out years ago. I get there's still a connection, but like, to me, and then he just stood there like, and I'm like,
it was like watching Liza Minnelli of Men. I mean, like, anything
was involved. She was like,
anything could have happened. Anything could have happened with this.
Like, he said nothing. He just stood there. He looked like he could have cut him right out. So yeah, things like that I'm like, this is such a disconnect. And if these are the things that you're doing to try to like make a buzz, like, they're lucky this Will Smith thing happened at this point. Like, because what else would we all be talking about today is like how stupid all these other ideas were. And I just feel like there has to be another way to get people interested.
Something that's so upsetting about the Oscars is, one, a bunch of these movies here are, well, not a bunch, but there's a bunch of like remakes on here. West Side Story, Macbeth, a lot of these things are remakes. Or
even Nightmare Alley too.
Nightmare Alley, all of these things are remakes. And if I were running the Oscars, I'd say, sure, best adapted screenplay from like a book, sure. Best
Mhm.
original screenplay, great. But like when you're just taking West Side Story and just hitting copy and paste and just like, how are you getting nominated for it? But the problem I have is this, is what you're talking about, Lindsay, is all of these reunions. So White Men Can't Jump just got announced that they're remaking it. So like that's probably why.
With Jack Harlow.
Oh,
Oh, that's
God.
right.
So
So I'm
that's
like, again, you want to merge the old and the young? Let's not celebrate the reunion. Let's have Woody Harrelson and Jack Harlow come out together and talk
Yeah.
about this, and maybe, you know, like try to dribble a basketball with each other. I don't know, if you're looking for a shtick.
yeah.
Like,
So I
you
mean,
know,
like you.
these kids don't know who Rosie Perez is. Like,
I think the thing that's so sad about this is that it's like the Oscars, it's for creativity, it's for originality, it's for this and that. And then all of these reunions you're having, you're like, hey, we're making a TV show about The Godfather because you haven't seen any Godfather things for a couple of years. Oh, by the way, we're remaking White Men Can't Jump because you're all waiting for that. And it's like, why are you
I
like,
tell you, Mikey, Steve said the same thing, and he's not a movie person, but at one point when something came up, he looked at me and he was like, oh, I think he was like annoyed even just about Ariana DeBose winning like Best Supporting Actress. And he was like, if someone else already won the award for this part, you shouldn't also be allowed to win the award. And I was like, well, she was really good and blah, blah, blah. He's like, why is this movie nominated again? If it already won like the first time, he's like, it should be obsolete. He's like, if you made it better, and it like if it didn't win anything before, but then you do a good job of it, he's like, then you should be allowed to be nominated. He's like, but if the movie already won, that's it. What are you gonna do?
or make them face off? Like, was she better than the original actress? Then she takes her Oscar from her, and
Ah.
that settles it. Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
yeah.
I will say, fun fact, I did a pool at work, and I did like a little trivia thing where I asked questions. And so one of the things was they were saying that Ariana DeBose and Rita Moreno winning an Oscar for the same part is the third time that two different actors have won Oscars for playing the same part in two different movies. Can you guess who the other combos of actors are?
I believe like I've known this at some point in the past. So it's two actors playing the same people in the same
Different movies.
Okay, gotcha.
Obviously, they weren't in the movie together. Like, but
Oh
like,
wait,
yeah.
I know. I think I know. Do you know, Mikey?
Go for it.
Is it the Joaquin Phoenix and Heath Ledger?
Yep, that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I think is a little bit of a cheat, but it's Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro, because they both played
Oh, duh. Yeah, that's right.
in two different movies.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So anyways, that's
interesting.
only the third time it's the third time that has happened, which again, outraged me, because he's like, oh no, if someone else already did that, you don't get to.
It's just so like, it just takes away so much. And from what I've talked to people about, they said this West Side Story was like the exact same movie. Like it wasn't that much different. And like,
So you didn't watch it, correct? You're not a musical guy?
No.
I'm not judging Sean,
Honestly,
because
I saw it. I kind of loved it, honestly. But it is, yeah. I mean, it is obviously very similar. There are differences, but like obviously
it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah, the first shot, it's like the crane shot over the city, and yeah, it's a beautiful movie for sure.
It's Spielberg at his Spielbergy-est. Like
Yes.
it's what you can do with a movie like that if you have the Spielberg expertise and budget behind you to support it. And as like a former theater kid, one of the things I really appreciate about it, because the problem is like a lot of theater productions, when they get turned into movies, are so cheesy, because you're like, people don't break in a song, like this is weird. And in a theater, a lot of stuff makes sense because like you have to overact because you're performing to the last row of the crowd. And in a film, you don't have to do that because you're on a giant screen and everyone can see you. So a lot of times there's like a cheese level factor of that, and they've definitely ruined a lot of musicals that I've loved by putting them in film form.
We had Max come on and talk about Cats.
Oh, I didn't even see that. But like one of the ones I think of is Rent. Like the movie of Rent is like abhorrent. And then the side swipe of that is that like I loved Tick Tick Boom, which is about the creator.
I did too. Like
really
amazing. I cried. Like I cried talking about it later to someone, because I was just like, oh my God, like you don't understand, like Rent changed my life. You know,
I've seen Rent. Like I'm not a big musical guy. I saw Rent.
The thing I loved about it is that like if you know Rent really well, there's little references to it in different ways. And I got like choked up because I was just like, oh my God, like this is like when they name the people that died of AIDS, those are all names that are in the show. I was like, oh my God, like it's
Rent to me is a weird musical. It's just like, I think too, what I don't like about it, because I have not seen many musicals, is like, I hate when people talk sing things. Like
That's what
Rent.
musicals are.
I know, but like I went and saw Rent, and they were like, "Do you have a lighter for my candle? Cause my light is going dark and the window's breezy. I'm
That's
walking
very
up the
close to the actual
stairs."
words, Mikey, for someone who isn't.
Yeah, I saw it
So
one time
I don't
live.
want to go too much in this. I could do a whole thing about this, but what I was gonna say is I thought West Side Story was beautiful, and I thought they did a really good job with making it both colorful and gritty at the same time. It wasn't like one of those where you look at it and you're like, this is the cleanest New York City street I've ever seen. This is a Disney New York street. And I also think they did a good job by blending some of the theater elements with like realistic stuff where like I loved the scenes in the balcony. Like everything looked so good when they did those shots, like coming up and you saw like the whole thing outside her balcony. Like it looked so real. They filmed a lot of it out in New York City, and they filmed it at the same time as in the Heights. And they were like literally streets away from each other.
Oh, wow.
Completely different movies. And so, yeah, so I actually, I think in another time, that movie would have done really well at the Oscars.
Definitely.
And when you look at it compared to some of the other things nominated, you're like, I don't know if people are just like, yeah, we get it. Spielberg makes a great movie. Like, moving on. And it was interesting, again, for him and Jane Campion to be kind of, people were saying like, oh, they're battling each other once again, because she was nominated in 1994 and lost to him that year for Schindler's List. And
what did she make then?
The Piano with Holly Hunter and Anna Paquin. And Holly Hunter and Anna Paquin both won Oscars in that movie.
Oh, interesting.
Anna Paquin was one of like the youngest winners of all time. Not the youngest. Tatum O'Neal is still the youngest, but Anna Paquin was like 14, I think, or something. And so people are like, oh, they're going head to head again. And like, again, Power of the Dog is beautiful, but it is boring as shit.
I love head versus head, whatever you just said. I love when people go up as a versus. Like for me, I've always loved watching Danny Boyle and Darren Aronofsky go up against each other.
Oh,
like,
I thought you were gonna say Catherine Bigelow against her ex-husband James Cameron.
No, what did she made?
The Hurt Locker.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, I have something stupid to ask, and this is for the people listening who don't know what West Side Story is. I watched the Oscars with a friend of mine. I don't know what West Side Story is. She told me that it is basically just Romeo and Juliet set in modern time in New York City. But like I was like inspired by Romeo and Juliet, and she's like, no, like it's just Romeo and Juliet in modern time. So while we're talking about things being remade and retold. So you're telling me that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet, and then somebody made it into West Side Story, which was pretty much the exact same story, but in New York City. And then somebody remade it again later, and it's now been nominated twice.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, a lot of people consider like Shakespeare one of like the greatest, authors of all time. And there's a lot of elements about his story that you can argue. And I mean, I can't tell you how many movies I've seen where they're like, oh, this is a version of Macbeth. This is a version of Othello.
Save the Last Dance and right?
Right. No, O was actually of Othello. I think it was just the same people, but Save the Last Dance is not a Shakespeare story. But like Clueless is a version of Emma, and again, not Shakespeare, but like it's kind of like fashion where it's like everything is cyclical. These ideas are all going to get reused anyways, but there's a lot of movies that take inspiration from Macbeth, from A King Lear, from that type of stuff. So like I think a lot of those elements are always going to like be there. You'd be surprised at how many movies are like 10 Things I Hate About You is Taming of the Shrew. Like,
oh yeah,
we're going back to like 7th grade.
Have you ever heard of what is it called, the 36 dramatic situations?
No.
So yeah, you look this up at some time. It's interesting, but there's a writer back. This was back in like 1890. So this was.
I was an English major when I first went to college.
Oh, okay, I didn't even learn about this in school either. But yeah, he talked about how pretty much like there's really only 38 dramatic situations that occur in every body of work, and they eventually just get recycled or made in a different fashion. So it's fascinating. Yeah. Was that Mikey?
What were you gonna say?
No,
you can go.
I was gonna say it's the same as like an Ed Sheeran song, where like every time Ed Sheeran puts out a song, Marvin's Gaye's family tries to sue him, and like I play music, you can't write anything new in music. It's just
there are only so many notes.
It's different tempos, it's different up chords and down, just like so like you can't write anything. So I'm sure a lot of these movies have been inspired by Shakespeare, and a lot of them haven't. And then somebody's like Shakespeare, and the person who made it's like, yep, this was. And the thing is, we're not talking about the most hidden of all of them too. The one that you would never think is a Shakespeare retelling, Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
I think they intentionally, the differences with West Side Story, spoiler alert. I don't think you can give a spoiler alert for a movie that came out 50 years ago. I don't know. But like they both don't die in the end. But if you see like Bernardo and Riff are what's their faces? The other two guys, John Leguizamo and the Leonardo DiCaprio one, and
Romeo plus Juliet.
Stuff where it's like star-crossed lovers from two different worlds whose families hate each other, who aren't supposed to be together. Like that's a tale as old as time. Like I feel like that's,
if anything too, like Romeo and Juliet is like I don't know, like maybe more class related, while obviously it's more race related, obviously in West Side Story. So like there are like major differences, but like I can definitely see the comparison though.
And ironically, I think I mentioned this in our group chat the other day, but I was looking up stuff because I was literally Googling how many people in the original West Side Story were actually Puerto Rican. Fun fact, 1. Rita Moreno was it, and even her so the movie came out in I think like 51, 57, something like that.
I think it was like early 60s.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm totally off. Or maybe it's supposed to take place then. I don't remember. But so Rita Moreno was the only person of Puerto Rican descent in that movie. The lead, Natalie Wood, who played Maria, not only was she not singing, but she was also not Puerto Rican. And even Rita Moreno, they put brown makeup on her to make her darker, as they did with a lot of the white people that were playing the Puerto Ricans. So like clearly like the movie was not like, a lot of people are like, why would they remake this? But like, you know, this is a movie that's not without its faults. Yeah. But the reason I was saying all that, and now I totally forget I said the mentions in our group chat. So in my, I love nothing more than after a movie to go on IMDb and look up all the trivia and like learn things about the actors and whatever. So in this, I found out that the original West Side Story was like originally conceived many years before the movie actually came out and the musical and such. And it was written by 4 gay Jewish white men. And originally it was a story about like a Jewish family and a non-Jewish family where the kids fell in love and they didn't want them to be there. But apparently around that same time, a very similar movie came out about like a Jewish girl and a non-Jewish guy. And they were like, oh, it's too close. We can't do it. So like, it just got shelved for years. And then at some point they're like, Puerto Ricans versus Americans. Like, and it's literally like the same story. They just did it with different people, but they were literally given the directive, like make a modern day Romeo and Juliet.
Can you imagine if TikTok existed back then and we had 4 gay Jewish filmmakers had their own account and we're like, oh my God, that would have just been the best.
Well, like
ever.
It's just funny because it's just like these people shouldn't be making a movie about the plight of like Puerto Ricans that are being pushed out of their neighborhood and like the people that they're fighting against who like, you know, also like what they want the neighborhood. Like, it's one of those where you look at and you're like, this is not your story to tell, but like, you know, it was a different time. So anyways, I don't want to go too much into like any one movie, but like, I do truly think that in another time period, West Side Story could have fared much better at the Oscars than it did.
No, you're talking not only that, but I think it would have done way better at the box office and had a much better critical reception, because I feel like it just kind of came and went. Like, you know, like critics loved it, but like nobody talked. I don't feel like anyone really talked about it that much, or as much as you would expect people to talk about a West Side Story movie directed by Spielberg, you know, to be talking about.
I felt about In the Heights. I thought In the Heights was going to be huge. I thought that was going to be the thing that Lin-Manuel Miranda for. And I watched it on, I was kind of mad I didn't go see it in the theater, but I truly haven't been to a movie in the theater since February 2020. And I watched it at my house, and like, it's beautiful. It's colorful. It's like before Hamilton, it was like a huge, you know, one of the biggest like musicals that had done so well at the Tonys and everything. And I felt the same way. I felt like it didn't have the critical like or the box office success that I anticipated, given the popularity of Lin-Manuel and just like how well that did on Broadway over the years. So like, you just kind of never really know like what's gonna.
Well, and I feel like I think musicals are just kind of a hard sell to general audiences nowadays. Because like all the like I feel like this past year it was a huge year for musicals, like in film, like having West Side Story, having In the Heights, Tick Tick Boom, and hell, even Best Picture Winner Coda had a lot of like musical elements in it too. But yeah,
the
like
last musical one Best Picture was Chicago, which was when I was like I want to say a senior in high school. So like that was like 2003.
Yeah.
it's just like, it's not, and like the heyday of movie musicals was like what, like the 70s. That's when like all the movie musicals came out that are classics now that you know of, The Sound of Music and The King and I and
all that jazz.
Yeah, all of that stuff is from like, it's just, it's almost like a dying art. Like, talk about things that youths aren't interested in. I loved Hamilton, but maybe they don't want to see it like played out in real time in like a film version.
I have not yet. That and Book of Mormon, I'm sure, are being written for the big screen now.
I was curious about that because they ended up filming Hamilton. I was curious if that was going to take the place of making a movie of it someday, but I think that they would be stupid not to.
Yeah.
Not to option rights to do that like for real.
Here's a theory I have. So one, very upset that Billie Eilish and her brother won an Oscar for the James Bond song.
You mean one of the renowned stars of the Glee project that was featured on Women's Entertainment back in the day?
He was on the Glee project?
He certainly was. Season 3, I want to say.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Their parents are also like
Ariana DeBose was on So You Think You Can Dance.
Oy.
This is the year of reality stars. Like,
well, Hollywood is just people who made it because they went on a reality show and or their parents are famous and got them.
Ariana DeBose actually also was in Hamilton, the original.
Yeah, no, she's talented. But no, the thing is that Billie Eilish and her brother won for James Bond. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even like the Adele song for James Bond. I just don't, and I love Adele, but I just don't think the James Bond songs are that great. They're always just
I don't know what it is though about them that it seems like a guaranteed win because Sam Smith also beat Lady Gaga and poor Diane Warren that year. Right. And I really thought she was going to win that year because that was like, remember that was like such a powerful performance. She had all the survivors of like rape behind her and they were all singing that song. It was called If It Happens to You. It was from, I think it was from a documentary, but Diane Warren wrote it. Gaga performed it and people were like, this is it. Diane Warren had her 13th nomination this year. This is the person who wrote I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. She's written some of like the best movie songs of all time. She's the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. She never wins. But I don't know what it is about James Bond songs, man. I mean, to have Adele, Sam Smith, and now Billie Eilish all win for James Bond songs is like mind-blowing to me.
I'm sorry, too. The movie's called No Time to Die, and you name your song No Time to Die. Like,
that happens a lot.
Be a little more creative.
Well, isn't that every Bond?
Yeah, Madonna's was Die Another Day, and Adele's Skyfall. I don't remember what the Sam Smith was because it wasn't as good as the Adele one. I also know that song is a little bit of a downer. But it works for the movie, like with the dramatics and the whatever.
Yeah, it's a cool song.
I did see someone once win a karaoke contest singing that song. And I was like, that was a risk to come up here in a bar and be like, let the sky fall. Like, just go. I'm like, this isn't what you do at karaoke. So anyways, they have a great track record, those Bond songs.
I have a theory. Well, one, they should
for the youths.
they should test it next year. Have like 2 Chainz do the Bond song and just see if he winds up winning it and see if like it's just a reoccurring theme. But
I mean, 3 6 Mafia won an Oscar before
Hard Out Here for a Pimp.
Before Martin Scorsese.
Yep.
These, life isn't fair always.
But I think my theory is this: is Lin-Manuel Miranda he didn't get to show up because his wife tested positive for COVID. He's like, me and the kids are negative, but we don't want to, risk it. And I'm like, smart move. That's such a cool move. We can talk about this too, but
care more about others than yourself.
The Oscars was one giant joke about COVID by a bunch of millionaires who didn't have to worry about COVID for the past 2 years. But anyway,
and it was so interesting because did you hear that everyone at the BAFTAs got COVID? So that was like a big thing because it's like a certain amount of time before, but actually I guess there wasn't a lot of crossover. It used to be one of those things where the BAFTAs was like really a precursor sometimes, just like all these other award shows that you knew who was going to win, but they actually didn't even nominate a lot of the same people as the Oscars. But I think literally like everyone that went to the BAFTAs got COVID. So they said a lot of the nominees were being super careful and not going. And they said they weren't sure how this was going to affect because Oscars, ultimately, we want to believe it's about the craft, but it's a popularity contest. So that's the reason that Harvey Weinstein used to have so many winners because he freaking bullied people into like voting for his stuff. And part of the game you play is you go to the luncheons and you go to this and you schmooze with people and you get people to like you and you get them to want to vote for you. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why like just Jessica Chastain did so well and Will Smith. Like these are likable, personal people, but a lot of those events were either like not happening at all, or a lot of celebs they were saying didn't want to go to them because they didn't want to ruin their chance to be able to go to the Oscars.
So one idea is, I think when we looked at the 37th year of White Men Can't Jump and the this and that,
38. It's a very,
38.
very important milestone.
I think maybe in defense of the Oscars, I think a lot of celebrities still aren't showing up to these awards yet because of, COVID. Some of them are still being cautious. So I think they wanted to do this and they didn't get those actors. So they got stuck with White Men Can't Jump. My other theory is, I think that Billie Eilish, I think that because Lin-Manuel Miranda did not show up and he was going to get his EGOT, I think that he was going to win. And last minute, when they found out that he couldn't show up because his family had COVID, I think that's when they were like, quick, let's give it to Billie Eilish and her brother. Like, I think that there's no way that they should have won that. There must have been something behind that.
But I also think that, like, if that's how you were, like, that was truly one of your things maybe that could get some of the young people, is like, everyone I know in their 20s likes Billie Eilish. I feel like I don't get her because I'm old and I'm like, what's going on with her hair? Like, I feel like I turn into like my mother when I see her. I'm like, why's her hair green? Why does she wear such baggy clothes? And I personally have a thing, and it's the same reason I don't like Kristen Stewart. And again, I don't want to be like one of those women who doesn't support other women, but I just don't like people, men or women, who act annoyed by fame, who act annoyed by this amazing privilege that they have to do what they love to do and to reach these people. And Billie Eilish to me sometimes is just like an immature kid who I'm like I forget what it was. There's something the Grammys a couple years ago. Like, just when she gets up, the way she talks and the things she says about all this, I'm like, do you appreciate any of this? Do you care? But everyone I know in their 20s like loves her music. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's just like, so I'm like, okay to be like, it's just not my thing. And that's how I felt about Kristen Stewart. She always seemed like annoyed that she was famous. And I'm like, there's a million people who would kill. I know that it's not easy, but like, there's a million people that would kill to be in your spot. And like, you just seem like you don't give a shit. And like,
Robert Pattinson too. He recently said that he's been making up things in interviews his whole entire career, which is hilarious. He, like, when you watch TV and it's like a Burger King commercial and then him and Zoe Kravitz come on, they're like, the Batman in theaters now. You can tell he is so miserable that he has to do any press for anything ever.
Yeah, because I mean, also like the idea you said of actors like Kristen Stewart, maybe like showcasing that they don't give a shit about their fame or whatever. Like, that's also performance in and of itself. Like, there's kind of like a level to it where, yeah, like they're pretending like, oh, this is whatever, like I don't care about it, or
they're too cool for it. And I'm like, I think somebody who's like a perpetual, like, I'm just happy to be here. I've never gotten along with people that are too cool for anything. And like, I'm just always like, why are you like this? This is fun. Like, it's okay to have fun. It's okay to like things. It doesn't make you uncool.
You just made $20 million to work for 3 months, like,
right.
Show up and smile, like show up and be enthusiastic at least a little.
Yeah. I'm sure the twilight of it all for them was tough in some ways, because it's like, yeah, you don't get typecast, you're about to work. But I'm sorry. I mean, it doesn't even matter at this point. Kristen Stewart will be on my shit list forever for showing up in shorts to the Oscars. And that to me shows that you don't give a shit, because that to me is disrespectful. Before the slap heard around the world, I'm like, this is the worst thing. This is the most disrespectful thing you could do to the Academy. I don't care if they were Chanel. Like, you looked like an idiot. And then you couldn't even be bothered to wear your regular shoes. For 5 seconds, she was in loafers and socks. Literally the second she got off the carpet. I'm like, can't you fake this for 2 hours?
Like, what about Timothy Chalamet? Were you upset that he was shirtless?
No, but again, I also feel like that I'm too old to get Timothy Chalamet. Like,
I don't either. I liked him in Don't Look Up, and none of his other movies.
I actually did too, because I actually thought that was one of the few parts where I'm like, this is perfect for you. Like,
he played a brooding teenager who was angsty.
He played it so well, but like,
that's what he plays in everything.
Right. But also, like, Little Women is my favorite story of all time. And it was like hard to watch him in that after like living for years with like Christian Bale in Little Women. Like, a young Christian Bale was in the 1994 version with Winona Ryder, which is like truly one of my favorite movies of all time. And also starring Kirsten Dunst. So watching him just be kind of like a whiny boy in that, I was just like, oh, go away. So I feel like I'm too old to get the appeal of Timothée Chalamet, but I will say that I was texting with my friend who is very stylish and is a homosexual about Timothée Chalamet's outfit. And he was like, I love it. And he said, it's not just that he doesn't have a shirt on. He said, men have so few chances to take risks on a red carpet. Like, you wear a suit and that's it. Maybe you wear it in a different color. How exciting. He's like, there's so little to do that he was like, I just appreciate that he did something. He's like, there's not enough bare-chested men on the red carpet. I was like, okay, sure. And again, that's one of those moments where I'm just like, you know what? I concede. I'm too old. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get why this kid doesn't have a shirt on.
One thing I hate about, Kristen Stewart showing up in shorts, I guess I would kind of compare this, is like, I hate when people then look at them and have to like say like, oh my God, she wore shorts. Like I would probably do that too. Like the whole I love Jennifer Lawrence, phenomenal actress. I love her. She's funny. She's cool. She's great.
Yeah.
But she, like the whole entire, like, did you see her on the talk show? She burped. Celebrities are just like us.
Yeah.
Did you see that Kristen Stewart was wearing loafers? Like, oh my God, she's so like.
Well, that
yes.
was like, I feel like that was the theme of I think I want to say the 2012 or 2013 Oscars, where like they all took a selfie and they passed around like pizza at one point, and it was like, how
Ellen took
we
the
eat
selfie.
food
We're
too.
so relatable.
Yeah, so relatable. Yeah, so it's like, although I will say though, in defense of all that, I can kind of respect like Kristen Stewart or Jennifer Lawrence, because like there is kind of a realness to it. Like they're like, oh, I don't want to just like play into it so hard and be fake. Like, so I can kind of like be a little defensive of that too.
I totally get it. And I don't want to just like talk badly about a woman because of what she's wearing. I just think you're the face of Chanel. I think part of me too was like, what really upset me is she went to the Critics' Choice Awards, which I'm like, okay, it's another precursor to the Oscars, but like not anything near big. And she looked like a fucking movie star. She was in like a gorgeous dress, and there's a picture of her getting into a limo, like looking over her shoulder. And I'm like, oh my God, is this like the second cut? Like she looked like Grace Kelly. She looked gorgeous. And I was like, and for a second I was like, you know what, that's a movie star. And then she comes to this thing in shorts with a shirt unbuttoned down here, and I'm like, you don't even care about the institution of the Oscars.
Yeah.
It's just so upsetting. But what you just said reminded me of something. Speaking of themes, did you guys hear mention throughout the night of the theme of the Oscars this year? Did you know it had a theme?
Yes, but I don't remember what.
Okay, so this is also what I think is really silly. And I'm like when they say like the theme of the Oscars this year is blah, it's like, yeah, no shit. Like, sorry, we can swear on this, right?
Of course.
Yeah, go for it.
But okay, so the theme this year, brace yourselves, it's revolutionary, was movie lovers unite.
Isn't that
Oh,
every
okay,
year?
I did hear about this.
Like,
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that this one night that those of us who care sit here and make freaking ballots and try to watch all these movies are uniting as movie lovers. What a revolutionary idea. And every time they said it, I was like, oh, here we go again. Like, and anytime I was texting with a couple different people or whatever, and they would say something about something, and I'm like, movie lovers unite. Like, that was my response for everything. Like, they somehow consider that a theme. And I'm like, that's not a theme that you can even thread through this. Like, it's
kind of sad at this point when they even have to do that in the first place. They're like, oh,
yeah.
don't forget, guys.
Oscars. The theme is the Oscars.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Like
Hollywood's biggest night. That's the theme every year. Like,
are the Grammys themes gonna be like music lovers getting together?
Yeah.
Well, it just made me laugh because Mindy Kaling, I don't know if you saw her post. She always goes to the Vanity Fair after party with BJ Novak, much to the chagrin of all of us who are like, why aren't you just married already? But her caption on her Instagram for her picture of her outfit just wrote, I love movies. And because I was like, yes, movie lovers unite.
She looked incredible too. Yeah,
amazing. But it's just like, again, those moments just like really show when you have people that are so like trying to double down on like, we're trying to be so in touch. I'm like, things like that just show me like, you're not though. You're out of touch, and it's okay. Let's just all admit like why we're really here, and that your key demographic at this point is like 40 to 60. Like, are younger, because there's the few of us that care. But it's just like, I'm kind of like we went back to like, just like give your existing audience, stop alienating your existing audience to get this makeshift pretend audience that you think is out there, that you think you want. Because like, what are they giving you? And I felt like also, I still don't understand. I was like reading about it later, the Twitter awards that they are having people vote on.
Oh, the fan favorites. Yeah.
That was announced with very little fanfare. They didn't even waste a presenter on it, like to talk about it. They just like threw it up there. Was that the thing with the special force that everybody was making fun of on Twitter? Or I think Space Force? You know what I'm talking about? Where they're like, it was someone joins the Space Force. Like that was like one of the ongoing jokes online. It was like a Justice League, I think, or something, right?
Yeah, because they showed a scene with the Flash or something, and like
Flash
that's.
Gordon, yeah,
But
Flash
right,
goes.
it was something I think again they tried to maybe connect to younger audiences and be like, hey, look, like you can have uh um like a choice in a sense, like you can vote on something that will show in the Oscars. But then you're right, they kind of just like throw it out there, cool,
Teased
okay.
it for way too long, and then like there was a lot of buildup, and I don't know if they were running out of time, and that's why they just like threw it up there. I don't know if there was more of a plan for it, but like they talked about it like it was a bigger thing and then didn't make a bigger thing about it. And I'm like, that seems like a missed opportunity for how much you were like promoting this, that you had these Twitter things. So like, again, the things like that they tried to do new just seem like such misses. And I feel like the things that work are the things that like we know we love. Like I love a montage. Every year when they talk about making the Oscar shorter, they're like, oh, we cut out a bunch of the montages. I'm like, I want a montage. I want a recap of what the year in film was. Like,
Yeah.
please, I love when they do the mix of the prestigious films and like the films that did well successfully at the box office. Like, I love when they thread a common theme of like the like the meanings of some of the movies, or where they do like the look, I don't know, or like when they have like Oprah come out at the Emmys and talk about like what television has done for all of us. Like, I love that stuff. And I'm like, you're killing me by like not having any of this stuff. And by telling me that like the Twitter fan favorite is gonna like resurge this show. So it's just like stuff like that I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, you just want to sit down with these people and be like, what exactly were you going for here? And did you succeed? Do you think you did? Like, I don't know.
Well, imagine you guys are mentioning multiple times how crazy it must be to even like orchestrate this whole live event. So
Sure.
I imagine there's probably like a million voices like, we got to do this, no, we got to do this. It's like I imagine coming to a consensus about anything is probably so difficult for an award show like this. But still, yeah, it's like, I don't know why they don't just double down on things that they know work and that people, like, again, the core audience actually enjoys. Like, I agree, montages are really fun. And in it, yeah, maybe even like finding just more unique ways to celebrate all the movies that are nominated. Like, so everything gets kind of like shown. And I don't know. Yeah, they definitely got to like figure something out. And that isn't just, again, trying to like get like just younger people to watch, because obviously that's not working.
I think part of the problem is like, it's not just the Academy. The Academy is also at the mercy of the network. And that was something I heard people talking about today on one of the podcasts I listened to, like, especially relating to the Will Smith thing. There was a lot of people that were like, why wasn't he escorted out? Why wasn't he asked to leave? They were saying like, it's not just the Academy that gets to make these big decisions about what goes in the broadcast. ABC is also like behind it. And so if you have ABC going like, no, keep this train wreck going, we want to see what happens, we want the ratings, but you have the Academy saying that like what he did violated their bylaws of like being involved in the Academy, then you've got those two heads butting. And like, I'm assuming that the producer is hired by ABC. I'm assuming the producer doesn't work for the Academy, but maybe you work in congruence with like both of them, because obviously ultimately you'd want everybody to be happy. But I wonder if ultimately if ABC has the last word with certain things, because they're probably putting up the most money when it comes to all that, because they're the ones that have to deal with like advertisers and stuff. So those are things that I think about too. It's just like, I don't think I had a friend who was like in my DMs, that was like very like, they should have removed him, and even if he was going to win the Oscar, they should have picked somebody else. They had enough time. I'm like, they had 15 minutes. That place was probably a shit show after that happened. You think that they were all of a sudden going to turn to Price Waterhouse and be like, hey guys, can you give us the tallies for the second best person so we can give this out instead? I think it would have been chaos. It would have been even worse than it was already. What happened with Moonlight? Like,
especially if that came out 5-10 years from now, that Will Smith was supposed to get it. Can you imagine what that drama would be like in 10 or 15 years?
Absolutely. And like, again, like what's tough about this is like, him winning the award, him doing what he did and then still getting award doesn't negate the performance that he gave that people voted on weeks ago. So like, to all of a sudden pretend, but I mean, stuff like that does happen. You think about the pageant girls, to go back to my sister, your previous guest, is like, some girls get to be pageant title holders because the person who won fucked up, like, and they get to take their place. Vanessa Williams, the most famous like pageant failure of all time. Vanessa Williams won Miss, I don't want to say the wrong thing, USA, I believe. I think she was the first Black Miss USA. It was a big deal. And she got disqualified because it came out that she had done like nude modeling before. And the next runner-up got to be Miss USA for the rest of the year. Now, does anybody know who that girl is? No. And Vanessa Williams went on to have like an actual career. So like, joke's on her. It actually worked out for her in the end. But there have been different people like that. So I guess like, yeah, technically, if they want to take away your Oscar, they can, but I would just see them saying, okay, we took away your Oscar. I can't see them saying, okay, we're going to give it now to the next runner up.
Yeah.
Don't you
And
think
then that runner up is not going to feel special about it.
No, wouldn't you feel horrible? Wouldn't you be
Yeah.
like, oh great, I won this because Will Smith like lost his mind on
It's
air?
Chris
Like,
Rock made a joke. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. You know, we of course have
okay,
to
let's give can we set a timer? Can we give ourselves
Yeah, just
like
I feel
everybody
like
gets,
we have to address it because like it changed the whole like mood of the whole show. You know, like
it
I just
took
wanna say,
away.
and I'm sure in any recap you're listening to right now, no one is spending this amount of time on production design like we are. So,
True.
like,
True.
giving you a different look at the Oscars this year.
Yeah, I mean, God, I'll go first, I guess. I mean, it's funny. I'm friends with a lot of comedians on Instagram or follow a lot of comedians, big and small, and all of that. And I've done comedy a bunch too. And you know, a lot of people are like, if every time somebody told a joke that other people didn't like, and this happened, there would be chaos. Other people are like, oh, so now comedians can get punched. That's good to know next time I go to a comedy show, whatever. I think, I don't think he necessarily should have been like escorted out or arrested. It's obviously Chris Rock who would be pressing charges. He's not going to press charges.
Yeah.
It didn't have to become a big thing. If it was anybody else who did it, I also don't think they would have been tackled and escorted. It was like Chris Pine or whoever. Nobody else who was at the Oscars, if they did it, would have gotten in trouble. Also, it was a slap. He didn't deck him. He didn't do anything like that. It was a slap.
Did you see? I was very surprised at this reaction. Did you see Judd Apatow's tweet saying he could have killed him?
Oh yeah, he had such an overreaction to it.
I was like, ooh, and I saw a lot of people reacting to being like, oh great, this like white guy like was saying that this other guy is because he's black is automatically violent and like it was kind of a
Yeah, it was like a
die by slap.
it was just like it didn't even like we all saw the video
It's
once
kind of
we
like
saw
what I do to my dog when like he's misbehaving. I'm like, stop
yeah,
that.
like it was kind of like slapping some sense into him. But I mean,
Yeah.
to then say twice, get my wife's name out of your fucking mouth twice, and like that audio leaked. I mean, that's I felt bad for Will Smith that he finally won an Oscar, and King Richard was phenomenal. I loved him so much. I thought he deserved it. I was so excited. That took away everything. But at the same time, like, I mean, a lot of comments I read said Ricky Gervais said everything and nobody ever slapped him. Like,
I was like sitting there thinking, I was like, thank God this was like Ricky Gervais was not the host this year because
Yep.
oh man,
And he knows not to host. He knows he'll always say no if he ever gets asked back. But I guess in
did he
my
do the Oscars or did he do Golden Globes? Wasn't he?
He did Golden Globes a few times. I think he did the Oscars once.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh
And
no,
some-
Seth MacFarlane was the one that I was really concerned about doing the Oscars a couple years ago. I'm
Mm.
like,
Oh yeah, I forgot about
But
that.
he's good for it. He's such a talented musical brilliant person. But I guess my thing is this is like I don't think he should have been arrested. I don't think they should have taken his Oscar away. I think what he did was way too quick, and he's apologized and he did what he needed to do to apologize, and he had a roller coaster of a night, and that's he's gonna remember it and remember the emotions and all of that. And I don't think he should have done what he did at all. And I mean, I guess it happened and it's over now, and he's apologized about it. And I heard that him and Chris Rock made up at the after party, and just everybody's like moved on.
that was
already.
what Diddy said. We don't know if that's true.
No,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Chris Rock actually I think he left like right after that.
Yeah, they said he was nowhere
Yeah.
after he was gone. So
Really? So
Diddy
that's
was
not
like,
even-
we're gonna handle this later. But from what I heard, Chris Rock was out.
See, I'd heard at an after party, not even like at the Oscars, but people had said that like they had met up after, ran into each other.
But Mikey, did you see that he's got like a tour happening? Did you see how much his ticket sales like spike?
Chris-
Because I think because he hasn't made any statements yet, so people want to hear like what his version is of this. I think, and
Yeah.
like it's something that he's selling tickets for right now, and they said it.
Jada spoke out today. I know she released a statement, but yeah, what do you,
I don't consider that a statement. She put an Instagram photo up with no caption that just said something about this being a time of healing. I think she's saving it for the red table.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh.
absolutely would not be surprised if she got Will and Chris to sit down at that together and talk about it. She has done, I mean, I will say she's done some awesome interviews on there. I don't know if you guys have seen any of it. I don't like
No.
regularly watch her Facebook show, but she and Will were on there talking about their marriage. so the whole point of the show is it's with her mother and her daughter. So it's like 3 generations of women, but they had Olivia Jade on. It was the first thing she did to speak out after her mom got convicted of, lying to get her to college and paying her way in.
Now she's on Dancing with the Stars because she's a
She
celebrity.
was, and was dating Jacob Elordi from Euphoria. And I don't think they're anymore, but she also had Jordan Woods on after and again, if you guys don't care about reality, you're not going to literally know who this person is, but she was Kylie Jenner's best friend. They did everything together. They lived together. She was kissing. Oh, sorry. My alarm clock telling me to go to bed. She was caught kissing Chloe's baby daddy, Tristan Thompson, basketball player. And the entire family iced her out. She was gone. And like, they blamed her for everything, not Tristan, who's a serial cheater and now has a baby with another woman. So they did the interview with Jordan Woods on Red Table Talk because I guess her parents were friends with Will and Jada. I think her dad has since like passed away. So like they got that interview. So like she gets in there and they have really interesting conversations. I would not be surprised if she worked this. And I think the show is technically like off right now. I think she does do like seasons of it. But I would wonder if I'd have to think like she's saving that. The only other way that I feel like we could really get a good kind of recap on this is like an Oprah interview. Like, I'm just thinking this would be prime.
Do we need that though? Do we need that?
I mean, she did so well with like Meghan and Harry. I feel like if there was
but this should not be the next Meghan and Harry.
No, but I think if there was anybody who was going to sit down and have a very thoughtful conversation about all of the elements at play here, I feel like Oprah's the one to do it, to be like, so what was going through your head when this happened? Like, what was like, I just feel like she could do it. But I truly think that it's going to go to the red table. From the red carpet to the red table. That's like where we're headed, I think.
Yeah.
It's sad that I have no interest in reality TV, but everything that you just said about Kylie Jenner and the cheating and that, I know about all of that. I wish I didn't, but yeah.
I don't even watch Kardashians anymore. You can't not be like in the realm of, like I said, like I get phone updates from like Us Weekly. Like I know who every contestant is on The Bachelor, and I don't even watch The Bachelor. Like there are some things that are just in the peripheral you can't help but find out. But I don't know. Tom, what do you think? We all get to give our like 1 second pitch on what our 1 minute pitch on what we think went down here.
Yeah.
What our are. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I feel like
I agree.
No offense to all of us. I feel like there's a lot of other very thoughtful conversations happening about this. I feel like I've even learned a lot in the past 24 hours of things that I hadn't thought about, maybe certain biases that we all have that we don't realize we have. And it has kind of made me go like, you know what? Maybe like, I'm okay to take a step back here and shut up on this. Like, maybe this is not my thing to fight, but I kind of just have been approaching it more of like the mindset of just someone who loves award shows and who follows this religiously. I don't want to just be like another white lady who's like, well, this man acted erratically, like
right.
More for me about a thing of just like, this is not what I'm used to seeing in my broadcast of like,
you don't want to be a Karen.
For sure not. I don't think this is our
Karen's
time.
Talking right now. In general, because I'll say I agree pretty much with what you guys said, but what's fascinating is like the general. So I've been looking up reactions to this comment thread just to see what people are saying, and a lot of people talk about this as if like they're related to like Chris Rock or related to Jada and Will, and I'm like,
absolutely.
I'm like, look, like we're all like nobody, like 99% of the world, we don't know these people. We've only seen the illusion of movement, like just watching them on screen, like. Obviously like, I don't agree with what Will did. It was obviously an overreaction to a joke, maybe a tasteless, maybe a bad joke, but yeah, it's just weird that it happened because, like I said, it's like you could just feel the environment shift, like the tone shift. Everything felt awkward after it, and yeah, Will accepting his award, it felt so weird. Like 10-15 minutes
and
after
going
that
to
happened.
parties later,
and then the videos of him dancing. And all that.
His own music.
His own music, yeah. So like,
it's
just weird. It's just a really weird situation that occurred. It's just awkward. It's very awkward for everybody.
Amy Schumer handled it perfectly too, coming back in. And
I kind of wish that they had brought her out a little earlier. I feel like as a response to that, I feel like, and this always happens with the Oscars when they have a host. We haven't had a host in 3 years, so it's hard to remember what it was like in the days before this. But it always was that the hosts were very prevalent at the beginning of the show, and then they do kind of trail off. And I think part of it is because like, okay, it's starting to run long, we get through the awards, whatever. But I especially felt like in that moment, like there needed to be a little bit more of a diffusion, and that like maybe having one of those women come back out might have helped a little bit. I don't think anybody would have helped. Again, the reports I read from people who were in the theater said even in the mezzanine, you could feel that the energy had changed and it wasn't the same the rest of the night. They said the tension was just so thick. But I do feel like I liked that she was like, what I missed. But I kind of felt like that they could have maybe like even just gotten on that a little bit sooner or like had something happen because it really needed there needed to be a little bit of lightness after that. It was so tough to watch. I mean, I was at home and I was like, oh my God. I was like under my blanket, just being like, Steve was with me. I'm like, what's happening? What are they doing? Like,
we all thought our TVs cut out. Or like, we were all
and
texting.
Then I didn't realize, so Steve, it's so funny because again, my husband doesn't care about any of this, but he does listen to like 98.5 The Sports Hub. And I guess some of them are movie fans. Like Felger is a big movie fan. So I guess they were talking about it. I like how we all were like, oh, monitor check. Tom, do you have anything to check in on it?
Thankfully,
and he said the guys were talking about because I guess like Felger is like a big movie fan or whatever. And they were also mentioning Mikey. I don't know if you guys, either of you noticed this. I totally forgot about it because again, I was so preoccupied with the slap. There was a couple other moments. I don't remember if it was during his speech or it must have been because they were showing them that they kept pulling up on the screen. It said Oscars, like, and it was just like the logo, but you could still hear him talking. They were saying on the sports show today that it was because when they kept showing shots of Serena and Venus and that one of them was having like a nip slip. And that's why they kept having to flash, like, I think, because Venus was wearing a very low cut dress. And I think that they were showing her during his speech, like reacting. And I guess her nipple was like out. And so that was why they were also like cutting to that.
I forgot about that completely, but yeah, I watched it with my roommate. And at that one point, they just, kept flashing the Oscar screen. We're like, what is going on? This is a weird
And that's
show.
when you're like, oh my God, is someone else rushing the stage? Like, what's happening? But that was what I heard. So again, I don't have any proof of that.
You're saying the title screen of the Oscars was more due to the nip slip than the arguing and the fighting?
The arguing, the fighting was separate. So that was more bleeped. They didn't black out the picture. I think it was correct, Tom. Was it during Will's speech? Or it was something when they were showing Serena and Venus.
I don't know if it was like right during his speech. I don't know.
I forgot. There was a couple times where you could still hear all the audio like normal, but then all of a sudden just a big blank screen would come up that said Oscars with like the little logo. It happened a few times.
It was during his speech because he gave a shout out and said like,
so maybe that was it. So then
he said what I did was very Richard-like and, you know,
and I was like, oh my God, is Chris Rock coming back up? Like, what's happening? I guess, okay, I'll try to be as succinct about this as possible. My biggest takeaway from watching this, again, as someone who has no skin in this game, who has no reason to be commenting on this other than the fact that like I love award shows, I'm obsessed with them, and like I'm obsessed at what goes down with them. I mean, I think this is truly going to surpass like the La La Land Moonlight thing as being like the most uncomfortable thing that's ever happened at
anything Steve Harvey's ever done either.
Right. Like at least that was just a mistake. That was like an honest mistake.
John Travolta.
Right. That was funny. Like, would you die right now? Wouldn't you love to go back and be like Adela Dazeem? Like,
I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Like, remember when that was the craziest thing that happened? But like, what I will say is just, I feel like in this situation, there are truly no winners, even though there are people that walked away with statues. I also feel like this is one of those, like, just to go back to like the basics of like, you know, manners that you learn is like 2 wrongs here not even manners, but like 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think Chris told a bad joke, and I don't think Will should have reacted that way. I don't think one of them is right over the other. I see a lot of people being like, Will is defending his wife. Chris is a comedian. This is that. I think they're both kind of in the wrong here. Again, the other thing I wanted to say, and again, maybe this is on me, but like, I'm a big follower of celebrity pop culture. I had no idea that Jada had alopecia.
Me either.
Yeah. I am guessing, could be wrong, that maybe Chris Rock didn't know either, because I know he's a comedian and I know he's controversial. I don't think he would have made a joke about her being bald if he knew she had a condition that made her bald.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think he would go that far.
There's so many other celebrities to make fun of there. I mean,
right.
I might be in the minority here, but like the joke itself, I didn't think it was like it's kind of a lame joke, but I don't think it was like that like offensive, because he's comparing her to badass Demi Moore in he literally, the comparison is that Demi Moore is bald in G.I. Jane.
Right.
Like
but also, like, you know, the topic of Black women's hair is a very, very sensitive topic for many, and so I think that's another reason why it's like you kind of just like hands off, don't mess with it.
Yeah,
I just thought it was not a good joke, and such an old reference. Like G.I. Jane was not even ever an Oscar nominated movie. It's from like the 90s. So like, And before that, I thought he was also, and like, I'm not saying, I think Chris Rock is funny and I think he has his moments, but like, I didn't think any of the jokes he was telling at that moment were funny. So I'm like, also like, for this to happen over this, I'm like, wasn't worth it. It wasn't like you landed this amazing joke. Before that, he was saying something about Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz. And he was like, oh, if she doesn't win, like you don't win either. And you guys have to go home together. They're both Oscar winners already. They have awards. They don't care. Neither of them were predicted to win for this. I think they're good. They're also like super hot. So like they're fine. They're doing okay.
I thought that joke was hilarious. I thought
it was so stupid.
I thought it was a very Chris Rock joke. I thought it was
again, of all the things you could like, I didn't like lead up to it was good.
I think his delivery was good because Chris Rock has amazing energy and he, his delivery is funny. But like honestly, I thought the joke kind of fell flat, and it's funny because you kind of could make the same joke with
anybody.
Well,
Chris Rock and Jesse Plemons. Like
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So like, there's other examples even at that Oscars you could have like made that joke about, I guess. So.
And I saw a video today that I thought put this really well. And his name is, I don't know if he's like an author or motivational speaker. His name is Emmanuel, I'm not going to say it right, Acho, A-C-H-O. And he posted this video where he was like, this is not an excuse. He said there's no excuse for what Will did. He's like, but there is an explanation. And I think that the problem is that a lot of people are looking at the situation and they're looking at the black and the white of it. Who's wrong? Who's right? Who won? Who lost? I think this whole thing is a giant gray area. I think there's a lot of factors involved. And I think that I felt like from what we saw, like, I think part of why people are so shocked is because Will Smith is this kind of beloved figure known for being so positive and happy and everyone loves him. I've never heard anything bad about him other than the fact that like maybe at one point they were like almost going to be Scientologists. But other than that, I've never heard anything like, I've never heard a bad word about the guy. And I truly feel like in that moment, something in him kind of like snapped. And I think a lot of that is from like, and again, not to psychoanalyze anybody who I don't know, but he's been pretty open about this. I think there is past trauma in there that has not been dealt with. And something in that moment made him like turn it, a switch flipped and he went red. His biography came out in November. He talks in the very first page, I think, about how he's considered himself a coward his whole life because he never stood up to his abusive father against his mother. And how when he was 9 years old, he watched his father punch his mother in the head so hard that she fell to the ground and spit blood out. And he said, I was 9 and I somehow thought that was my fault. I thought I was a coward because I didn't do anything about it. Like, what would a 9-year-old have done?
Wow.
And he watched his father abuse his mother for years. And he said, I never did anything about it. And he even said that when he was an adult and was taking care of his father as he was dying of cancer a couple of years ago, he said he contemplated pushing him down the stairs in his wheelchair because he was like, this is how I'm going to avenge my mother's death, or to avenge my mother's like life, that like I didn't do anything. So now's the moment. And I just wonder in that moment if he was like, I have to defend my wife. I didn't defend the woman I loved the first time around, and now's my chance.
Yeah.
And it did seem strange for somebody who has probably had a lot of things said about him over the years. And I even looked at a timeline today on like people.com. There was like literally a timeline of like him and Chris Rock of work they've done together, of pictures of them together.
He was on Chris Rock was on Fresh Prince. He was on an episode.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. He played like a double part where he was a guy and a girl, which probably also wouldn't fly nowadays. But he did make a joke about Jada specifically and them at the 2016 awards.
That one was way worse too.
That was worse, I thought.
What was that one?
That was it was one of the many years of Oscars So White, and Jada had been publicly saying that she was going to boycott the Oscars because of their like elimination of people of color in every major acting category. And it was the year he was hosting, I think. It was 2016.
Yeah, he was hosting.
He talked about it and he said, Jada Pinkett Smith boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting getting into Rihanna's panties. Like, you weren't invited. There's no reason for you to be there.
I remember
like,
that. Yeah.
And also made a joke, again, I didn't think it was that great, about like Will Smith never should have been paid $20 million for Wild Wild West. It's like, you could say that about a lot of people in Hollywood. They've all had flops. So I think that maybe there was some bad blood there that boiled over. I think maybe also part of it was like, there was a joke made about their marriage early on in the show that they did laugh at. I don't know too, if there's a double standard of like Regina Hall made that joke earlier versus like a man made this joke now, and you're in defense mode and you're like, don't you talk about my wife. But it is also interesting too, because even with like the open marriage joke, like they have been so open about the openness of their relationship. They've been really open about the fact that like she had a relationship with somebody else and he knew about it and they ran it by each other and they talked about it on a whole episode of Red Table Talk. So I think that's another reason too why a lot of people feel like, why is this off limits? You guys talk about this stuff all the time. And maybe
apparently she had an affair recently. So that's what the touchy part was on
yeah,
that
but
show.
he also right there. So I think there were affairs, but I think there's a guy named August that she had a thing with that Will was aware of. I think they said on the show that like basically at some point this guy came to Will and was like, we're gonna like, I want to date your wife. And he like, and again, maybe that was because of past indiscretions, like who knows?
Yeah.
So I just think it's like a combination of a lot of things. And here's where I'm at personally, after like literally listening to people talk about it 24 hours now. I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, oh, like, I also feel bad because I'm seeing a lot of people I follow that are like people of color online who feel like they have to be the ones to explain this to everybody else. And it's like, that's no one else's responsibility. Like no one should be expecting that of you to speak for your entire race on like how you all feel about this. Cause we're all humans, we're all different. And there's all different like nuances and stuff. I personally feel like if he and Chris can squash it on their own and they're good, I'm okay with him keeping his Oscar, doing whatever. Like I saw a TikTok video where someone's like, they're like, and they literally said, they're like, you guys stay out of this. They're like, this is how we handle this. This is like a family conflict. We'll deal with it on our own. Chris is not pressing charges. So right off the bat, I'm kind of like, if you guys can work this out, then like, great for you. And then we like, there's really no need for us to talk about it anymore.
I was gonna say we have to all move on. I mean, that's
absolutely. The one thing that did really that bothered me was the reference he made to it in his acceptance speech. If I was Serena and Venus, I wouldn't have been thrilled with the connection that he made to their father. I had just watched that movie on Friday as well. And to say like, I'm driven by love. Richard, people thought he was a crazy dad. It's like, well, we're talking about a man who like made his daughters practice tennis in the rain. We're not talking about somebody like physically assaulting somebody else. And if I was Venus and Serena, I would be pissed because it's like, yeah, that movie was about their dad, but that movie was like, I mean, that story was not just about Richard. That story was about their whole family. You have your story being told on this international stage. You have this person who's playing your very much still alive father and saying like, well, I acted this way because of love. And maybe there is a part of him within that feels that way, but like to relate that to someone else's story, like, and that's like, you're not them, you can't speak for them. That was the thing that I had almost more of a problem with that than like the slap itself.
Yeah, because it's like it's kind of like a faux apology too, because he's apologizing to the Academy. He's not like he didn't say right there like I'm gonna apologize directly to Chris Rock and you're right. There's a little bit of that like justification, like, oh well, you do, what do you say, like sometimes you do crazy things for love, and it's a little it reads a little weird for sure.
It's like when you get in trouble at school and like the principal's like, apologize to your friend, and you look at the principal and you're like, I'm sorry, and he's like, no.
Or you're like, I'm sorry you felt that way. That's a big trope on like Real Housewives. So they're like, I'm sorry that you felt that way. It's like, well, are you sorry for being an asshole? No, it's like a fake apology. I also have a feeling like that maybe he had a certain speech plan. Is that I think there were parts of that speech that like he was kind of planning on saying, and then he quickly had to like pivot to include some of that stuff. And I guess props to him for being able to do this, to make this segue on the fly. But I just think like bringing other people's like family into it is tricky. But from what I've heard, like Jada's not upset with what he did. That we know that people are saying that she feels supported by him. His son tweeted like, that's how we do it. Like something like that.
Oh God, they're freaking kids.
A lot of people, I guess, were seen in the theater. They said like Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban got up and gave him a huge hug during the commercial. Obviously, we know Denzel spoke to him. There's footage of Bradley Cooper going up and like kind of consoling him. And they said even the Vanity Fair thing about their party at the end of the night said that literally as he was leaving, the last person to greet him before he ran away that was like, wait, like had to go. I mean, it was Timothée Chalamet, like went up to him at the end of the night and like hugged him. So like, I don't think it's going to ruin his career. I'm glad that he apologized. I do think at some point there will be a more formal sit down interview where we get more words from it. I'll be interested to hear if we hear from Chris Rock, other than like stuff he might say on stage, like on a tour. Like I'm
I was gonna
curious,
say this will definitely be part of his stand-up
but I'm
tour.
curious if it'll ever be like filmed somewhere on the record for
Oh,
something.
his first show, he's probably gonna get a crazy
Oh my God.
standing ovation. Like, although I will say, like, I guess some silver linings, like, his ticket sales like shot up. I think
Right.
he got more ticket sales like the day after than in like the previous whole
Yeah.
month or something. So it's like, hey,
I also give him props. I mean, obviously Chris Rock is talented and doesn't need this, but Charlie Sheen did a stand-up tour after he went crazy, and it was called the Tiger Blood
Tiger
Charlie
Blood,
Sheen
isn't
Comedy
it
Tour.
like horrible? It was like off the rails.
Yeah. So I think it's nice that like today it wasn't like Chris Rock changes comedy tour to Slapsgiving 2022 or
Right,
And I saw something about like they're saying like Adam Sandler was like supporting him and like different people. And this is another thing, and again, not even related specifically to this, but it kind of reminds me of this. And maybe you guys care less about this because of the red carpet nature of it all, but that's something that I, really look forward to. As far as like with the joke with Jada, it's like, I feel like that there is a lot of things you could say. There's a lot of things you could make fun of. And I just feel like that where we're at in 2022, like making any comments about a woman's appearance is not going to go over well for you. So like, again, whether or not you were offended, I've seen some people that are like, I wouldn't be offended. G.I. Jane's badass, like, Demi Moore was gorgeous in that movie, blah, blah, blah. But I think just in general, like we're just in a different space as far as like a lot of that stuff goes. And for me, a way that has really changed is like, I loved watching the Fashion Police recap that like Joan Rivers would do afterwards, because Joan Rivers was like, again, of a different time. She was a certain person that could only get away with the things that she said. There's no version of that now. They've never been able to replicate that. They tried it with Kathy Griffin and Joan's daughter,
Kelly Osbourne.
And Juliana. And like, do you remember what happened with the comment about Zendaya and her hair? That was years ago. And I feel like that was really when it was like, oh shit, there's a reckoning here where like, you can't say stuff like that about people of different races and teenage girls. And like, and I hate to look at, I just wonder sometimes if there is a middle ground, if there's a way to do it, because I do miss an element of not critiquing for the sake of being mean, but for like talking about stuff like that you're interested in. Like, I want someone else to be like, Kristen Stewart, what the hell are you doing in those shorts? But I feel like we've also entered a whole new era where it's like, why are you judging a woman by what she looks like, or a man? Again, I think there is a little bit of a double standard. I was making a point when I was talking about this on my Instagram story that like the three female judges made a joke at one point about Timothée Chalamet not doing well after COVID, like basically kind of like making reference to like, oh, you're thin and you're frail and like whatever. Cause they were like, oh, COVID has not been kind to some of you or whatever. And they're like, Timothée Chalamet, like, and it's like, and it killed, everybody laughed. So like, is there a double standard that women can say that and men can't? Is there a double standard that you can make a comment about a man's body? And he's like, we know now that like, eating disorders and issues like that of self-esteem are just as prevalent in men as women, but maybe like not talked about as much or not as like socially acceptable. So I've seen different people like talking about kind of like, how can we get back to discussing the red carpet in a way that is like fun and like, it's an art in itself. These designers spend all this time and effort. So like, we want to like, you don't want to just have to be like, oh yeah, everybody looks great when like you're wearing a freaking trash bag. But I feel like we're in a really weird spot right now where there's like no good way to do that. And so that's why, especially telling a joke about a woman who is Black to do with her hair, who happens to have an autoimmune disease, is like not a good look and not a good way to go. But I just wonder if there are different ways. I saw someone one day saying that they should resurrect Fashion Police with Keke Palmer because she has kind of like that. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
She did some of the hosting for like the Met Gala for Vogue, and she is kind of like one of those that can like throw stuff out, and she's
funny.
Whatever,
she's
like
great.
I mean, that clip of her saying like, I don't know this man about Dick Cheney. There's other people that if you saw a clip of that, you'd be like, you are such a moron. What do you mean you don't know who the vice president of the United States is? Like, but it was funny when she did it, and she has that lightness about her. So I wonder if it depends on the person, but like, there is an element of that I do miss, of being able to talk about stuff like that, but not to be, I don't know, deliberately mean. And there were a lot of people that thought Joan Rivers was deliberately mean, but again, she was of a time, she was a very unique person. And it just doesn't seem like that's been able to be like replicated.
I was going to ask if that show existed still in 2022, because I figured it didn't. Yeah.
It hasn't for a while. I mean, they tried to bring it back after the Kelly Juliana debacle. and it just kind of like didn't work. And they've done different versions of it with Brad Goreski, who's a stylist, who you probably don't know who he is. His husband is actually a writer on Family Guy, Gary Janetti. And he does that Instagram account where he pretends he's Prince George and that he hates Meghan Markle. It's hilarious.
The baby?
The baby. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that account went viral. Yeah.
That account is, I'm shocked.
Probably
that
gonna get its own TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, he has his own TV show now. I'm shocked that hasn't been taken out by like the royal family somehow. But anyways, his husband is Brad Goreski. He's got glasses and he's a stylist and he's always doing like the red carpet stuff. So he does a lot of, but yeah, I find now it's just kind of a lot of everyone sits there and they're like, they all look great. And like,
I could see one person doing it. Billy, what's his name? Billy on the Street.
Oh, love
like
him.
I want him on the red carpet live trashing people's outfits.
That was also, that was something I was gonna say. You guys probably didn't watch like the E red carpet, right?
No.
They had Laverne Cox interviewing people for E. And I was talking about this with some people on Twitter and I felt like good, at least that like we weren't out there just like making fun of her, but like it wasn't a great vehicle for her. I think Laverne Cox is a great actress. I think she has a really fun personality, but like it didn't seem like she was right for interviewing people. She seemed very, very nervous. And it seemed like her solution when she was nervous was to say the word honey a lot and be like, honey this, honey, like, and then at the end of everything, she asked everybody about their outfits and said, tell us what story you're trying to tell with this outfit, because that's what you say now, instead of just saying like, who are you wearing?
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, there was this big campaign called Ask Her More, which was saying that like, we shouldn't be asking women on the red carpet about what they're wearing and nothing else. No one ever asked the men about what they're wearing. Like it's so sexist, And like, again, this is one of those things of those gray areas where I'm like, I see that side, but also you could look at what they're wearing as an art form in itself, just as much as acting. There are designers and assistants and stylists that spend hours upon hours creating these looks, putting them together. I am interested in what people are wearing. I want to know what went into the look. I want to know what you were doing when you were hanging out in the hotel that day, getting ready. I want to know what you ate for breakfast. So like, it kind of bothered me that they went so far left that they're like, no, asking women about what they're wearing at an award show is sexist. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I think you can ask the men too. I know the tuxes are kind of boring.
It's black and white.
I think you can do both. I think you can ask both men and women about like the craft of acting and like what went into it. But I think you can ask them both about like, hey, how'd you pick up these shoes? Like
they should do like a pop-up video style. Like as somebody's
like the second person that's mentioned that to me. Someone said I need a pop-up video to know like what is going on.
Because you can't cover everything at once. Like so as you're watching Anne Hathaway walking down, pop up about her shoes, pop about what she ate that morning, pop up about what limo she took there, and then have her interview and walk off. And you're like, oh wow, I learned a lot.
Because the E pre-show that started at 2 p.m., like 3 of the people on it are stylists and they have connections to other stylists. So literally a lot of the show is them being like, oh, I talked to so-and-so stylist. They don't want to give it all away, but so-and-so is going to have sequins, like, or they're like, so-and-so is wearing YSL today. Like, and it was kind of like teasing what was coming. And it's like, it seems like it's completely taboo now to actually ask them about any of those things. So I felt like Laverne's alternative was to go, what story are you telling us with this outfit? And I'm like, they're wearing it. That's the story. Like,
imagine asking Kristen Stewart that, or like,
she asked the men and I'm like, they're in a tux. Like what story do you tell with a tux? Like it's, so I don't want to be one of those people that's just like, I want to go back to the way things used to be. Everything's different now. And they're cancel culture and you can't say anything right to not offend anybody. That's not what I'm saying. I feel like things have changed and there's a lot of things that like rightly should change as time goes on and we evolve as people. But there are some elements of that stuff that I miss and I would love for there to be some way to achieve a balance of both, because that was something that like I always enjoyed about.
It's going to make it harder to find any hosts for the future, even presenters. Presenters are going to walk up and go, the Academy has been around for 78 years.
Yeah,
here is the best production design. People aren't going to, and I mean, God, talk about the 3 athletes up there. They were so awkward together. Like
they always are. It's the same way I feel about athletes hosting SNL. I'm like, they're not known for their personality. Like,
I mean, to say a final thing though about that whole incident, like it's funny too because obviously it's kind of a reoccurring thing now, or has been for a long time, to have a presenter or a host that just kind of makes racy jokes, that makes offensive jokes. Like we've had plenty of guests, or again, even Amy Schumer. I mean, at certain points, her monologue, she was really going off and saying some stuff. And she had one great joke. How like
I thought her solo part at the beginning, not with the three of them, I thought her part, she did by herself at the beginning, was the best one. And I saw
agree.
some people saying that they thought Regina Hall's, they were like, that was so annoying that like they just made her into this like horny sex pot, and that was all she is. And I'm like, I thought that was hilarious when she was calling the guys up on stage to do their COVID test. And when she asked Denzel if his son was there, I like died. I thought that was so funny. And I saw a lot of people online saying that like they were diminishing her to being like nothing but a boy crazy, whatever. And I'm like, she's not going for a Pulitzer Prize. She's hosting the Oscars. It's trying to make people laugh. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. And like I thought they were all really funny. I mean, some of the like the skit stuff they did was a little like, you know, they all
Spider-Man.
yeah, like that was kind of but no, they had a lot of good jokes.
A lot of people were upset about the Amy Schumer thing with Kirsten Dunst online, and she literally had to put
the
a
seat filler thing.
like, she was like, that was a joke. I love her. I know who she is. There was people that thought that that wasn't a bit and that Kirsten wasn't in on it and that Amy was just being rude to her and pushing her out of her seat.
Well, I think it's honestly because of Jesse's reaction. It was very like awkward.
Straight.
Yeah. So I think people thought that was like real, but
there's a lot of people that were like, she finally got nominated for an Oscar after she's been in the business since like, you know, the 90s, and like you just disrespected her like that. And she posted on her Instagram and she's like, that was a bit, it was a joke, and she very much knew what was going on.
I was gonna say I didn't love the whole COVID bit that Regina did, and I've seen
I thought it was
people,
funny.
other people didn't love it. I mean, like it's one of those things where in the beginning of COVID, you have all these celebrities in mansions. Like, it's not that hard to stay home. It's not that hard to do this. It's kind of just like, you know, COVID's not.
You're over any COVID jokes.
What?
Like for you, are you over any COVID jokes? You didn't think it was funny that she brought up a bunch of hot men and was trying to like feel them up on stage? Which again, talk about double standard. I'm like, a male host could not do this.
No,
like,
never,
that's
never.
true. Yeah. No, I mean, just COVID jokes, like I'm okay with some of them, but to make a whole entire bit about it, it just to me got kind of cringeworthy, where it just became a whole entire like act and skit and all of that. And it was just like none of those three people on stage had to ever worry about COVID over the past 2 years. You know, like
no, but it was more just, I don't know. And that was why, like, I thought that joke when she said the thing about, she's like, Will, Jade said it's okay, right? Like, if you come, like, that was, I was like, ooh,
that was funny.
And, like,
I like that.
They were both, you know, kind of laughing, but who knows? Maybe inside, it could also be one of those situations. A lot of people have been pointing that they're like, well, how could he have gotten so upset when he was laughing at the joke 5 seconds ago? And it's like, sometimes even when you're uncomfortable, you put on a face and you smile because you're like, I'm in front of a bunch of people and I don't want to make an ass out of myself. Like, so I don't think that you can just look at that and go like, oh, he was fine with it. It was only once he saw her. It's like, maybe he was trying to be like diplomatic. Like,
yeah.
But I have to say, again, related to fashion and something that probably doesn't matter at all, it really bothered me in the opening that 2 out of the 3 women were all in white, and Amy Schumer was like the only person in a different color, and she was on the end. I'm like, okay, if we're gonna have her in a different color, could she have been in the middle, or could we have just agreed that they were all gonna wear white? Like, right. I thought visually, again, when you talk about like the design of everything, I thought visually when I looked at that, I was like, what? Why is she doing what? Like, this makes no sense.
Well, I have to ask too, like, what do you think overall though of having 3 guests? Because hosts, sorry, because to me, they're all funny. They had their moments, but like it felt weird at times just having 3 hosts. I don't know, like
it was a little disjointed. It didn't feel like that those 3. I think it's different than when you have like an Amy Poehler and a Tina Fey doing it together, because you know they're friends, you know they have the rapport, you know they probably spent all week getting ready and like having it be so fun. It is kind of weird to see like these 3 people where you're like, what's the connection here? Like Wanda Sykes is significantly older, I think, than the other 2. I think of Regina Hall as an actress and not a comedian. I know she's been in some funny stuff, but I don't think of her. I thought she was funny in it, but she's not a straight comedian like other people that have hosted before. I thought 3 was a little bit too much, especially after not having hosts for 3 years. It felt like we went from 0 to 60. Yeah. And I'm like, is this just because you can't like, does one person not want to do it by themselves? Can you not like get one person to agree to this? Does it help soften the blow a little bit if there's 3? It's not so much pressure on one. There were a couple times in the past couple of years. I mean, I like a host for like the opening stuff and like doing all that. But again, if you're going to have Beyonce perform off site, then truly, I guess you don't need a host. Last year, I I almost said Regina George. Who am
Regina
I talking
King?
about? Regina King, sorry. Last year, Regina King was not, I mean, obviously last year was a weird year, but like they had Regina King do a whole opening and I'm like, is she the host? Can we just make her the host? Why not? Like,
Yeah.
It's always been confusing over the past few years of like, oh, there's no host, but then this person's doing the
then
majority
they
of
get someone to come up and do a bit for 20 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're basically hosting, you're just not doing all the in-between stuff later. So
They,
like,
they spaced it out. This like what I liked is they had all three come on like once and at the end, but like then they would have one on or two on. I think that made it much better and not as awkward. And also, it wasn't like watching three athletes go up and try to read from a teleprompter, at the same time as one another. Like they did well. I thought Amy was super funny, and I think they handled everything pretty well. So I thought that part was pretty good.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of like who my perfect hosts are. I am like kind of upset that like Tina and Amy have never done the Oscars, right? They only
Yeah.
did Golden Globes. I know that's kind of like passe at this point. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know if like the general public agrees with this, but like I personally would love like a Mindy Kaling. Has Tiffany Haddish done it?
I don't think
No,
so. But
she
I
presented
think
an award last night.
She maybe done like she's done like I think maybe like VMAs and stuff.
she'd be great
I
though.
want
think-
the Oscars to open like the MTV Music Awards or like the old award shows where like it would be like what's his name? Bryan Cranston adding himself into every movie. That's what I want the opening of the
Billy
Oh, yeah,
Oscars
Crystal
to
used
be.
to do that all the time.
Yeah, that was always the best shtick, always of all. I think every
Mhm.
award show should do exactly that to open.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Can you guys think of anybody else that you think you'd want to see in that? I mean, we've seen so many male late night comedians. Like, I don't think that there's any stone there that hasn't been unturned. So I'm kind of like over that. Not saying that they're not funny, but I'm just like, we've just seen it a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of like something different that would like.
Well,
make
I
me
think
laugh.
Tiffany Haddish would be great because she always brings energy. She's super funny.
She seems like she knows everybody. Like, you kind of need someone that everybody likes so that when they do get up there and talk about you, it's not like, "Ugh," like Ricky Gervais and Seth MacFarlane. Just like, I just felt I was always uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, what's coming? Like, like, please don't make everybody upset. Although now it's like, but yeah, I'm trying to think. I know Trevor Noah is doing the Grammys next week.
That's next week.
Yeah, because it was normally in February, but because of all the variants, they pushed it back, and I'm surprised it's still happening, but it's happening.
I can't even do the Grammys anymore. It's just like the Grammys to me are the MTV.
There's no
Music
awards.
It's the MTV Music Awards. It's just like
yeah, but I'm just so starved for content right now that like I watch everything.
Yeah. I like the Emmys. I've never watched the Tonys because that's never been a big thing.
No, but talk about a performance, like the Tonys, like
Yeah.
people those are performers. Those are people who know how to, like, actors obviously are performers, but they don't perform live. Like, there's something different about people that are built for, live shows. God, is this so bad that I can't, a garage collapsed in Boston. I'm like, again, I think it's also such a thankless job. There's so many people now that like are like, why would I do that to myself? Why would I get into this? There's other people I can think of that are like comedians that like I wish they were bigger because I think they could do a great job. Like, I love Eliza Schlesinger, and like, no, you're shaking your head. Steve and I are going to see her at the end of the month.
At the Wilbur?
At Mohegan Sun.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I bought tickets before COVID. She has since now had a baby. There's been a pandemic, and she's like, anyways, I love her specials. I'm like, oh, I wish like Steve really likes Nikki Glazer, but I think she's too dirty. Like,
really?
I don't think she could appeal to a broad audience like this. Again, I know these people are not yet famous enough to do the Oscars, but like, is that so bad that like I can't even think of people? I feel like a lot of times too, people look at the presenters and sometimes they get one funny glimmer of something and they're like, oh, they should host. Do you remember a couple years ago when Kristen Wiig and Will Ferrell did like one award together and they're like, them for host, and it's like,
yeah.
See,
snippet.
I kind of like, I love Mindy Kaling, but I don't think I'd want to watch Mindy or I'd want to watch Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig because like it's just kind of like the same shtick and the same bit the whole entire time. Of like,
I feel the same way about watching Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, like all those, James Corden, like,
and that's why three hosts is good because it's three different personalities.
I'll say like a talk show host is probably the most like safe bet you can go with.
I did used to like when Conan did it. I thought
Conan's like the best. I think he's the best late night host. Yeah.
What about Bill Burr? What if Bill Burr hosted?
Ooh, that'd be crazy.
Again, it's hard because it's like you do sort of need people that can like the problem I think that's the other problem I have with Ricky Gervais. It's not just that he's like pushes the line. Ricky Gervais also acts like movies are dumb. This whole thing is a piece of shit. Like, and it to me kind of reminds me of like the Kristen Stewart thing, the surliness, the like, I'm too good for all of this, and this is all a bunch of hoopla. And it's like, we're all here because we like the hoopla. So you sort of need, I think, someone that can schmooze and act like they enjoy the act of being in the entertainment industry, but can also not be afraid to make some commentary on like what's going on, you know, and like the people in the room.
Can you imagine if they brought back like Billy Crystal, the amount of tweets from 15-year-olds like, who's Billy Crystal?
Are 15-year-olds on Twitter? Are they using it?
Actually, I just thought I don't think she's ever hosted, but what about like Kristen Wiig or something? Because she's very funny too, and you know she's still.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
anybody from SNL would be good.
Yeah.
Had some of them do the Emmys, right? Well, I didn't like when Colin Jost and Michael. I know that was very divisive too. Some people love them. I don't like Jost and Che.
I love them. I love them as the Weekend Update, but I don't want to watch them for 3 hours either.
They did the Emmys a couple of years ago.
They did, yeah.
They've done something. I remember I was just like, I just think Colin Jost is so boring. I think both of them are boring. And again, both of them have that kind of attitude. I'm like, I need someone who cares a little bit about this.
Yeah, that's definitely not them. Definitely not Michael Che.
No, and like that's why like you do think of someone like a Kate McKinnon or you know who would be great? I think if they got into it, like Bowen Yang.
I can see him doing it in like 10 years, maybe. Yeah.
Right. If he gets to that like level, if he gets a little more famous. Oh, I'm thinking of other people. I'm like, I just need them to like, do you guys watch Insecure?
No.
Oh, okay. There's a woman on that plays one of Issa Rae's like friends. I mean, I think Issa Rae is great too. Again, I don't feel like they're like quite there yet. And that's what's hard. And I think that's why you tend to go to these like late night guys that you're like, oh, you know, they can do it. They're on TV every night, blah, blah, blah. They do skits. They do this, they do that. Like they can do it. But I think it's just like, it's been done, you know, it's like old news. So again, I do think it's a thankless job. There's a couple times in the past couple of years that I was like, oh, maybe we don't need a host. If you have some dynamic presenters that can fill this space, then maybe you don't need a host. But I think even this past Sunday, it did seem like to me like there was a lack of presenters too. And again, I don't know if that was a COVID thing of trying to have less people involved in the production. Maybe there's less actors with things to promote because like, again, want to think it's all about the movies and the awards, but like a lot of those people that appear on those things in the past is because they've got something going on that's coming out that they need to talk about.
I think so many people are good in small bits. That's why they don't want to do a host for 3 hours because they're like, hey, everybody loves Will Ferrell, but like, do we need him coming out making like faces for 3 hours of the show? No, but he could do a killer bit with Kristen Wiig where they both don't have a script, but they're making it up at the exact same time. Like that would be a great one-part shtick to the Oscars.
Right. I think that's why you think of the SNL people a lot too, because you're like, okay, I know they can perform for an hour and a half live.
Mm-hmm.
I think the live aspect is really tough for a lot of people.
And
even for people that are funny and for like, you know,
you gotta think on your feet like Amy Schumer did, which is a big part too. Yeah.
on your web, on your wires.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Is that your actual dog?
Oh, buddy.
It looks like you just like superimposed like the picture in.
That's what I love about the green screen.
I know we've been talking about the show for a long time. Was there anything else about specific categories or winners you guys wanted to mention? Because I feel like we've talked a lot about the other aspects of the show.
Yeah.
So I also said I'd teach you guys some sign language, so we got to do that.
Oh, right.
I was just happy. It's not inappropriate. I do know inappropriate stuff, but I'll teach you some real stuff. I watched Coda on Friday because Saturday I went to Gloucester to visit my parents' best friends. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be all touristy. But really, I was going to Gloucester. I wanted to see the movie. It blew me out of the water. I absolutely loved it. So much so that I went and watched Audible, which was nominated for short documentary. Let me see. What was Audible for? I think it was one of the documentaries. It's on Netflix. It's a 38-minute documentary, and it's about a small town of a high school for the deaf, and it follows the football team. And one of the teammates just killed himself, and it follows them. So watching that was like, it was just like really, really powerful watching the two of those back to back. And I just loved Coda. Like when we talked about what scenes they should show and talking about the movies, for Coda, they needed to show the scene where the sister and brother were arguing on the beach, and he was like, please go and live your life, so like, I can start being the one that they look to. That was just like, that's
when he put his hands on her neck when he was like wanted her to sing and he was feeling her vocal cords. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
the whole
It's funny,
movie.
I had a friend who said that he thought it was like a little bit too like on the nose with some of the stuff, and he was like, I would have preferred if it ended just as she was opening up the acceptance letter and like ended before you knew if she got in or not.
That's not an Oscar movie though. That's like a Netflix young adult, like, kind of.
No,
Just to add
I
a
feel like
little bit
that would actually would have probably been. I kind of would have liked that more, honestly, because like I liked Coda, but I will admit there are like certain like overly like sentimental moments in this movie, like almost like Hallmarky kind of moments. Not and some moments are great, like you mentioned, like the father like feeling when she like touching her like neck when she's singing, and I like all that stuff, but yeah.
It's very touching. It's very heartwarming. It was a great palate cleanser after watching Power of the Dog.
Anything
Yeah.
with me.
Of just like something where I felt nothing for any of those people. And I was like, I don't care if these people, again, not actors, the real actors, but the characters. I'm like, I don't care if they live or die. Like
I loved Coda because it was my favorite show is Scrubs, and I love Scrubs because in 22 minutes you laugh for 20 minutes and you cry in the last 2 minutes, and they play a nice song, and that's what Coda was. I mean, I laughed out loud that whole entire movie. The dad and all the sexual parts between the
oh my God,
mom
when he
and
was like,
dad,
she's so hot, I can't keep my hands off her.
the
Oh yeah.
whole entire.
There was little things that like, again, and I also I've had like no experiences with deaf people before. So for me, I think it was really great to see, like, again, and I think part of this is like, this is what good films and art do sometimes, is it exposes you to things that you're not familiar with outside of your
Mhm.
own little insular world. And I thought I loved the part. It just made like little things just made me laugh that like, I guess I just didn't think, like, this sounds so stupid, but like, I just didn't think a movie with deaf people would be like so funny, because you think about what you know about humor as a hearing person. It's like, it's in the delivery, it's in this and this and that. So when you take out those elements, it's like, how do you do certain comedic things and have
Mhm.
timing and this and that? And like,
Mhm.
this made like, this kind of like blew any preconceived notions I had about stuff like that, like kind of out of the water. Cause I'm like, this is funny. Like, like, and when he's, when the mother was like, what if she's awful? And he was like, she's not awful. And she goes, how would you know? Have you heard her?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Little
And
things like that.
how he
really-
loves rap music because he hears the bass, and
Yeah,
I think
gangster rap.
that's what was so cool about the movie is you think about Show Me the Money, you think about Officer, you think about all these famous movies with these very famous quotes and all of that, and it's like we watched that all unravel in this movie in a few different scenes in sign language, and we've never seen a back and forth between characters, and never seen any of those, I guess, kind of arcs before in American Sign Language, which was just like super powerful and just really
Tom,
cool, and it's going to open the doors to so many things, which is
yeah,
really
which
cool.
is great. And Tom, I hear what you're saying. I've heard a lot of people say that, while they love the movie, they don't feel like it's an Oscar movie. They don't feel like it's a Best Picture contender. But another thing that I've heard people kind of say is that like, after the past like year and a half, like people just kind of needed to feel something. And for a while,
Mm.
Power of the Dog was absolutely the front runner. And I think like, again, a lot of times you look at like it's not, we know now it's a popularity contest. It's not always what is the best of the best,
Oh,
but
for
I think
sure.
also it's a reflection of the culture and the time that you're in. And I think that like I thought it was a great movie, whether or not, like, I mean, first of all, there's too many movies nominated anyways. There's 10 different things where 10 different people. I texted a friend the day after I watched Power of the Dog, because I know he watches like Milan movies too. And it was actually Steve's roommate in college. And so he knows Steve really well. And so I was like, did you watch Power of the Dog? And he's like, yes, it's so fucking good. I was like, huh? And like,
Nobody liked that or
literally
Licorice
got into
Pizza.
like a whole discussion back and forth. And then I had said one of my biggest complaints about it was that I think it's a ripoff Brokeback Mountain, and I think Brokeback Mountain is better. And I said that to him, and he was like, oh, but the acting in Power of the Dog is way better than Brokeback. I was like, I was going to say the actors are way better in Brokeback. I was like, what are you talking about? Look, again, this is all subjective. Like, it is all in
Of
what
course.
you like. And like, but I do think that there is something about Coda that like, it's what we need right now. And it's what people wanted. And like,
It's new. It's
Well, I
fresh,
have to say,
it's
I'm glad it
original.
won. I'm happy
Yeah.
it won because it's funny. I actually I watched it like directly. No, I watched it directly after the day after yesterday
okay.
it won. So like, but I
So
was like,
you
it's a
enjoyed
nice
it.
movie, and like, I give major props to everyone in the cast. I know, Troy and Marlene Matlin, who also is I think the only other deaf actor to win an Oscar.
Yeah, she
Like
won
they,
when she was younger.
yeah, they were phenomenal. And what you were saying about how like like how many challenges there probably are to convey like any sort of humor when there's
Mhm.
when it's just two deaf actors communicating. So I think there's plenty of elements in this movie that I think are groundbreaking and it's special that like this movie got now has so much attention and highlighting certain groups and there's a lot of good things that came out of it. And also I think it's wild that Apple just picked this movie up at Sundance and was like, all right, let's grab this movie, put it on our streaming platform, and then boom, 2 years of having a streaming service, they already have a Best
Mhm.
Picture winner. While Netflix and Hulu have been trying to do this for years.
They're the first streaming service to have a Best Picture nom. I
Yep.
mean,
And
Yeah,
they
Netflix
only
sweep.
2 years into it too.
Netflix has been gunning for it. Like
Yeah,
they
but
got
all they
so
buy
close,
is young adult stuff now.
but they got so close with Roma and then didn't get it. They won a lot of other good awards with Roma, like they still won like Best Director, just like they did now. But like
Yep.
for Power of the Dog to get 12 nominations and to come away with one, like that is a tough
It
pill
made
for
me
them to
so
swallow.
happy.
They
It made
spend, I
me.
know, me too. They spend so much freaking money on these things. But what's interesting too is like, if you're Apple right now, you might be feeling a little bit like superior, but you have to remember that, like you said, like Apple didn't create that movie. Apple bought that movie. They were the highest
Yeah.
bidder. It was a bidding war between
Yep.
Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu. I mean, Amazon, Netflix, and Apple. And Apple got, it was the highest. It got the most amount of money that a Sundance movie has ever gotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also, they said, one of the fewer like prize winning ones at Sundance that has gone on to win Best Picture in like recent years. So it is interesting too, because it's like Apple's they're doing a lot more of like their own content, but like their first big win is technically not something that they created.
Good point.
True.
So they could be, they might be feeling a little special now, but like, I mean, I look at certain other things in those categories. Again, I didn't see everything. I think I saw 6 out of 10 Best Picture nominees. I think I saw 11 movies total. And again, most of this was in the past like week and a half because I really like crammed as much as I could. I was watching Tick Tick Boom up until on my
Me too.
on my TV while I had the pre-show starting on my laptop, like at 2. So I was just like, ugh. And like my kid was like asleep on me. And I was just like, I gotta get through this. I felt like I was like in college again, like cramming for a test. Because I just wanted to watch as many as I could.
I feel you on that.
I didn't do that like last year at all. I still had like a very young child and I was just like, oh, whatever. And it was like prime COVID and all of this. So I haven't made that much of an effort in like years to do this. It was just gave me something to like aspire to, it was like a little challenge I gave myself. But
Well, I'm
like,
sorry, you said you saw about 6 of the movies in the Best
yes,
Picture?
I
Yeah,
saw,
same here. I think I saw 6.
I'm trying to think, but like after, and again, it is all subjective, but like after watching even just like, just over half, I'm just like so angry that like Don't Look Up was in there over like Tick Tick Boom. And again, not saying that they're
Oh, I
equal, but
agree.
I look at Netflix and like what they've put in and I'm like, Don't Look Up was interesting in its own way. I could see it still getting nominated for writing, but like to me, it was not a Best Picture nominee. It like bothered me. It was like by the end, I was just like, and like I don't love like doomsday stuff. So even though it's like so jokey, I don't know if I'm like a highly sensitive person. Like watching them all like literally implode at the end just like really bothered me. It like put me in like a weird mindset the rest of the day. I didn't even like the end credit thing with like Meryl Streep. And
Are
again,
you
I get
kidding
it.
me with the Bon Iver song and it wasn't nominated for Best Original Song? You know
Oh,
how
I didn't
mad
know that.
Yeah, and the whole entire song retells the whole entire movie. I
Oh,
thought
does
that was like I said if there was an Oscars category for best post credits, that movie should have easily won because
it bothered me. I don't know why. It like put me in a weird thing. And then I'm like watching Tick Tick Boom and I'm like, this movie has made me feel so many things. How is this not in there? Like how did this beat this? But I
I
also was texting with somebody that I like did like high school theater with, and I was like, is it just us? Do you have to be, and you said you're not, Mikey, but I'm like, do you have to be a theater kid to have an emotional connection to this movie? And he was like, maybe. He goes, because I cried, but my wife did not.
so I saw Eyes of Tammy Faye before I saw Tick Tick Boom, and I was like, you know what? I was like,
Also not nominated for Best Picture.
if he weren't nominated for Tick Tick Boom, he would have been nominated for Eyes of Tammy Faye because of how good it was. And then I watched Tick Tick Boom,
And you're
and
like, this
I
is
was
why.
blown away. Just I
Mhm,
didn't know the original story. I didn't know how sad the freaking ending of it was. But I
mhm.
mean, to Shazam the songs in it and see that it was him actually singing it, I mean, that movie was
And they said that
incredible.
Lin-Manuel was interesting. Lin-Manuel directed that, and they said that he he even got like songs that weren't in the original show that were from like the Jonathan Larson vault to be in it because he wanted him to be credited with the score and everything about it
Yeah,
like as much as
yeah,
possible. So they didn't want to do anything that like wasn't his
yep.
in the movie. And so like that was another one where I'm like, to me, like films should make you feel something, whether it's like passion or rage or
Oh
laughter
yeah.
or whatever it is. And like I just when I was watching Don't Look Up, I was just like, oh, I feel
You
nothing.
weren't feeling rage? I mean, half the people didn't like that movie because it was too soon. I mean,
It's
the
too,
whole
yeah, it was like
movie
too
is a
real. And
very
it's like,
obvious juxtaposition of COVID. And I mean, a lot of people didn't like it because it was so soon. I've
and
watched
also
it.
like climate change to me, it was like, oh, this is what's gonna like ruin all of us. Eventually, we are like the only people living are gonna have to go off on a spaceship.
I've
I just found
watched
it
it
like
a few times, and the first time I laughed a lot, but I had my hand over my face in shock. The second time
I
was
was
much
frustrated
harder.
just watching it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of like pretty apt like criticisms where it's also like it's a lot of like basic like knee jerk like politics in it, or it's like, oh, like it's so obvious that like Meryl Streep is playing
Yeah.
this like Trump like president, and her son's almost like one of, like like it's this very obvious kind of like jabs at like modern politics. But to me, like I didn't feel like he was trying to. I don't think Adam McKay was trying to make this like super subtle like movie. Everything was very much open. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed it for that. I mean, it's no like Doctor Strangelove or anything, but I still liked it quite a bit. Um,
And then, yeah, by the way, Steve called me and I was like, I can't talk. I'm on Mikey's podcast. And he goes, okay, make sure to mention how awful Power of the Poop is, which is what he keeps calling Power of the Dog. Five. Um, yeah, that was like crazy that led with so much. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to think of what other ones I didn't see. So I didn't watch Drive My Car, which I
Me
figured
either.
I wouldn't because A, it's 179 minutes long. B, I don't want to sound like a racist white person. I just don't love subtitles in my movies, and I don't
Me
watch a
either.
lot I don't watch a
I
lot of foreign movies because I don't like to read while I watch my movies. That being said, I watch Coda and read them
yeah,
just
me
fine.
too. Me too.
But
I watch everything with subtitles. Maybe you're this way. I watch everything with subtitles because like I have a kid and I have ADD. So for me, I watch everything with subtitles because I can either read and not hear it, or
yeah,
I can hear it and not read it throughout the movie, and I toggle back and forth. I can't have a 3-hour movie where I have to read, and if I
right.
sneeze, I have to go back and go, wait, what did I miss?
Well, nothing. I'm not like, oh, I don't want to watch this because it's in Japanese. It's more, I'm just like, I don't feel like reading for
Yep.
179 minutes straight.
3 hours. Yeah. I
I,
watched.
I think it's fair. I mean, I'm
Really good
interested.
things
I'm
about
very
it.
interested though in Drive My Car just because the director. I've only seen one of his other movies. But it's called the Asako 1 and 2. It came out like 4 years ago, but it was so good.
And Mikey, remind me of some of the other nominees that I'm not thinking of. So, like, I know
Yeah. So
Coda, I know
I'll tell
Power
you
of the
the best
Dog.
pictures and what I saw. Belfast I saw, Code
I
I
did not see
saw,
that.
Don't Look Up I saw. I did not see Drive My Car or Dune. I saw King Richard, Licorice
Oh,
Pizza, and Nightmare and
Dune.
Power of the Dog. I did not see West Side Story.
So wait, no one else saw Dune? Did
No,
you
I
see
saw
Dune?
Dune.
Okay.
I did not.
What I'm going to say about Dune. I understand it winning all those craft awards. It looked great. The thing I appreciated about it was that clearly people are like in spaceships and doing things that had to have been made on a computer. It all looked so real. So however they did all that, I thought they deserved all of those awards. That being said, I have no idea what that movie is about.
I saw it twice.
Oh God, I watched
I
it
liked it
and
a lot.
that is a movie I'm sure that was meant to be seen in a theater. So
Yeah. That, and I didn't see it in the theater, so now I have no interest in watching it on HBO Max. I'm just like,
again, I'm still like, I think Timothy Chalamet is like a good actor. He's not like my cup of tea. So I'm kind of like, okay. I mean, Oscar Isaac, I thought was like, I'm like,
he's like my favorite actor.
and like LOL, he's 16 years older than him, and he's supposed to be his father in that movie. Which kind of like made me laugh. There's other entire parts that I never saw. Javier Bardem is in Dune. Never figured out who he was.
He's one of like the people in the desert they come across where they duel. Or remember when Paul
At the end?
It's like near the end of the movie when they're in the desert and they come across that group, that tribe.
Brenham people. The Blue-Eyed People?
Yes, they come across
Okay.
them, and they what's his name? Timmy battles that one guy. He's like the leader. Javier Bardem's like the leader or whatever.
He is? No
Yeah.
idea. No idea.
No,
I
I don't
also
know. I loved it. I mean, to me, like, I mean, yeah. So, like you said, visually, it's incredible. Like, it's like Avatar level as far as being like next level special effects integrated with live action. But I mean, I understand why people don't like, because obviously, like there's a lot like for instance, like the performances and dialogue is a very stoic. It's
Mhm.
very I'm going to talk like this the whole time, and it's like I understand if people don't like it, but I got into the story quite a bit. I'm kind of interested in reading the book now, like because
I was gonna ask
yeah.
it.
I've had no interest for a long time. I've always known about Dune, but I've never wanted to. But now I'm kind of interested. Um,
My
yeah.
husband read it in high school, and I was like, "Oh, do you want to watch this movie?" And he's like, "No," because he doesn't care for Timothée Chalamet either. He's like, "Nah." And so, but I kept asking. I truly, as a non-sci-fi fan, like again, not my key. Well, I'm not the key demographic for this movie. But as a non-sci-fi fan, I watch it and I'm just like, this is Star Wars, right? Like this is a ripoff.
Which I learned it was pretty much stolen off of George
It's
Lucas,
like
right?
it's these
Or
two
no,
different
George Lucas stole
groups.
Dune, right?
We
I
don't know
mean,
which
they're
came out.
very different. Star Wars
Yeah.
and Dune, they're very different. But
One of them came first, and the other one took it and just kind of changed it
Dune
around.
was written before Star Wars,
Yeah.
so it's probably George Lucas that was
It's
inspired.
an actual like novel versus like an idea that like George Lucas came up with.
I'll say
So
this: the
it's
good
again,
thing,
like you were saying about there's only so many themes. Like I feel like anytime that there's something like in the future or in space, you're like, okay, we have these people and we have these people, and they're fighting about something, and they want to get to here, but they got to go to there, but they got to go on a space mission first, and then their ship doesn't work, and like so, and I say that as someone who's only seen like half the Star Wars movies, so like it just was very reminiscent of that with me, and like the outfits, like everyone to me looked like Rey. I'm like, okay, like I get what we're doing. Go on, you do you.
I'll
I
say
had a
that
really hard time following though, and I did have to watch it over 3 sittings because it's also really long. So I watched it, and
it's
I
too
will
long for me. I can't even watch it in the background. It was too
too
long.
long, but I will fully admit that I was probably not watching it in the way in which it was intended. I watched it on my laptop in my kitchen while I was making Oscar-shaped cookies for my work Oscar party because I was like, I gotta get this done. I watched Being the Ricardos, and then like at 11 p.m. I'm like, well, I might as well start Dune because I still have like 40 more cookies to make. So I watched the first hour and a half on my laptop in the kitchen, and then I watched like another half hour somewhere else, and then I watched the final hour like on my TV. So it took me 3 sittings.
So I'll say the good thing to come out of these Oscars this year is that Coda winning so much is going to open up a lot for ASL movies and things like that. The bad things to come out of these Oscars is that this is going to fucking greenlight so many more space opera movies in Hollywood, and that makes me so upset and so disappointed because I don't care for Star Wars. Don't
That's so
care for
funny, Mikey. I
Dune.
would not peg you as that. I would think you're like one of those like I just like loving iconic movies that like
I
change cinema.
I love sci-fi, and I love sci-fi and like future movies, but your telling of what these space movies are like is very accurate, and it's just like, how is this any different than Star Wars? And why does Star Wars always get nominated for like visual effects and nothing else? But this movie got nominated for every single thing ever.
It is interesting, I guess, to
I
think
found
about.
that.
I
And then
think
Tom,
honestly, like maybe Academy voters like, because obviously, like if you're comparing Dune to Star Wars, Dune is a lot more serious, like self-serious. Star Wars
Mhm.
is goofy, jokey, so maybe they don't.
There's not little aliens like in a cantina.
Yeah, singing, playing jazz and
There is
stuff.
a
So like,
big sandworm.
yes, that you can't
Maybe
really
That's-
see
more
in
than
that one
one.
sighting.
They're
I
kind
hear
of
that it
scary,
looks like a
but like you don't.
butthole.
I think part of it is that you don't really like you don't fully see a lot of it, and then you do, and it's just like, but like
Well,
lot
they
of sand,
also
lot
they're
of
doing a
dry.
part 2, so
Yeah.
this is only part 1. So like I never read the book. I've only seen like fragments of David Lynch's movie, his version of it. But
Oh
like
yeah, there's another version. I forgot about that.
yeah, but so like the idea of like, because I know they showed at the end of the movie where they're like, oh, you can ride the worms. Like that's something they didn't show at all until the end of the movie, and then
Oh God, I missed that part entirely.
yeah, like I think it's like the last scene, like they
like harness the power of the worm, right? Like they can work with the worms.
yeah, so yeah, they can coexist and
Like they're
actually
the same
utilize them.
quality item. And it's crazy too, because like you look at this thing, you're like, okay, because it takes place in the year like 10,000 something, and like somewhere, God knows where, but like, and people have spaceships and they're doing all this stuff or whatever, but it's like, but everything that they're doing things over is all about spices.
Yeah, that's
I'm
sand
like,
spice.
that must be some real good saffron you got going on over there. Like, it's just like, why? I'm
Well,
like, I know vanilla is expensive, but like,
well, I mean, the main reason is because that spice is the only way that space travel is possible in that universe. Yeah, so like that's, and I mean, I don't know.
that's
I've
one
talked
You,
I've talked to
what,
people.
Mikey?
What'd you say?
I said, what do you got to say? What are you gonna say
No,
about Dune?
I've talked to people about it who I'm like, I hear not a lot happens in the first one, and it's more set up for the second one where there's going to be like big action and war, and people are like, yeah. So I'm like, one, why do we need a 2.5 hour setup movie? And two, why is a 2.5 hour setup movie winning all these Oscar awards? Like that,
It's not just a setup movie.
yeah.
that is a question that leads me to another question I have, and I was asking someone about this the other day. When 8 out of 10 of this year's Best Picture nominees are over 2 hours, pushing more like 2.5. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have we gotten to a point in film? What has happened over the years that we can no longer tell a story in under 2 hours?
Belfast, under an hour and a half. Boom.
I feel
Quick and easy.
like was it Lord of the Rings? Like, was it like where did this happen? I mean, is The Godfather even that long? Like, I just feel like the kind of running time for a movie would always be just under 2 hours. When you were getting dropped off at the movies by your mom, you'd just be like, come back in 2 hours between the previews, snacks, like whatever, like you'd be good. And I'm just wondering, like, has the narrative, has like the way we tell stories and the narrative of things changed so much that like every filmmaker now is like, nope, I'm spending as much time as I want. Like, there are so many movies I watch now where I'm like, I think if you cut a minute here, a minute there, you could take 20 minutes off this movie and we could still enjoy ourselves.
It's how you
Yeah.
get nominated.
Going
Or
on.
there's a lot of movies I can think of where I'm like, if you just cut like 20 minutes out, it'd be like a perfect movie. I'm like, but you're like, there's like a little too much padding in it. I mean,
Is it like a self-serving thing of the directors that they're like, no,
Yeah,
everything is so important for the story that this has to be in there? Like, do they do test audiences anymore? Like,
it's how you
I
get
yeah,
nominated. You put your movie in black and white. You do a silent film like The Artist. You make it 3.5 hours. You get
wasn't The
nominated for
Irishman 3 hours? Wasn't that a big thing for
over
Netflix?
3 hours.
that was a
yeah.
long movie. I will say though, like,
Is
I
that
mean,
because you're Scorsese and you're like, I'll do whatever I want?
oh yeah. I mean, it's been the case for a long time now, but obviously now that most movies are shot digitally, you can just shoot as much as you want. Like, film is expensive, and you got to be in so you have to make sure you get it you have to get it right, or you're wasting film, you're wasting celluloid. So digital, you take 50 billion takes and move on. So like.
That's such an interesting take because so my dad was a wedding photographer when I was growing up. And
Oh,
younger, we would shoot like maybe like 8 rolls of film a wedding. A roll of film, like a bigger roll, is 36 pictures. So we would do maybe like between 8 and 10 for an 8-hour day. Now you go in with a digital camera, you take literally over 1,000 images and you give the people as many as you want to give them.
yep.
And if you think about that now, you're kind of like, do I need that many pictures of myself? But also like that is just the norm now. So if you don't get that much, you're like, I was gypped. Like, but back in the day, people would literally be happy with like 8 things of 36 like to capture the entire day because you didn't give people like doubles. Like my dad and I used to literally throw out pictures. If there was a double, we're like, they don't need this.
I mean, in
that now at digital, if you have doubles, you're like, oh, I'll turn this one into black and white. Like you could turn every picture from someone's wedding into black and white and they get double pictures.
Yeah, I mean, and if some, I mean, thinking about that too, it's like they're in a way like it's more special because it's limited. It's limited. So like, and like we were saying earlier about how like even just relating it back to the Oscars, how like they're trying to fit.
Please keep us on track. Don't let us go off the rails like these movies.
Yes. No. Yeah. I don't even know where I was going with that. So anyway,
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of stuff here, but I don't know what else relating to some of the winners or nominees.
I do want to bring this up, and Tom, I messaged you it. So, I had of course seen Encanto because it's my son's favorite movie. I watched Luca because I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college, and it reminds me a lot of Cinque Terre, which is my favorite place in the whole entire world. I watched some of Raya and the Last Dragon, but it wasn't too much for me. I watched the Mitchells and the Machines, and Tom started watching it like a day or two after, and I said, by the time you're done watching this, you're going to be upset that this movie was not voted best movie of the year. And I've had people agree with me.
I heard really good things about it.
today. Like, I literally think it should have been nominated for, like, you have all these movies that are like foreign film, editing, this, that, and they're nominated for 80 different things. Mitchell and Machine should have been nominated for like a lot of awards. I thought it was like
Like when Toy Story gets nominated for Best Picture.
yeah, yeah. And I mean that and I mean, just to talk about some things that I thought were kind of robbed is like, I haven't seen Dune by any means, but Free Guy I never thought would ever be nominated for an Oscar. However, it's a fantastic, extremely original, innovative movie. There's a lot of like AI and tech behind it that I really appreciated. That should have won visual effects.
But you
And I
haven't
guess
seen Dune. Like the thing about Dune is, to me, again, I haven't seen that other movie, is like the whole point is that like it was made with a computer, but it looks freaking real. Whereas like instead of
It's
just like
some of the
watching a
best
computer thing.
like computer work ever, CGI work ever
so
in
I
Dune.
I mean,
guess
yes, a lot of that is sand.
Yeah.
Spice. So Tom, I'll ask you this, Lindsay too, chime in. Cinematography, the fact that Dune got nominated for cinematography, like I look at that and I go, all right, Nightmare Alley, no real CGI. Power of the Dog, not an ounce. Tragedy Macbeth, none. West Side Story, none. Isn't cinematography like, hey, look at this farm, look at how I shot a wide shot of it, isn't it pretty? Why does a movie that's done 99% on a computer win best cinematography?
Okay, no, because it's still framing a shot. Like
It's
it
the
does.
way it's shot. Yeah.
Like there's still cinematography in animated movies. You're still framing a
Yeah.
shot.
Oh
So
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah, and
think
get
like there was, see, that was the only thing that I could say when I watched Power of the Dog that I had like to, you know, when it's like, if you have to say, like, you got to say at least one nice thing, I'm like, it
it.
looks nice.
Yeah,
And
I
just
thought it
couldn't-
was gonna win that. I was like, if it's gonna win anything.
I thought, I was like, they'll give it that. But
Yeah.
then like, it's hard with, again, all these ones with like these crazy, you know, like effects and how much work into it. But I just kept thinking to myself, I was like, oh, Montana looks great. And then I have to remind myself, I'm like, this is New Zealand. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not Montana.
Yep.
It's supposed to be Montana. But can I just tell you one of the weirdest things from the get-go of that movie? I was sitting there looking at my husband and I was like, so they're like kind of rich. They have this big house. And these two brothers sleep in these twin beds next to each other every night.
And like bathe next to each other. Yeah.
It is so, they're just, everyone in it is odd. Everyone in it is weird. And
Like a
I
fever
was like
dream.
so
Like
surprised that people kept talking about like the amazing work of Cody Smith McPhee. I was like, he's playing an awkward teenager in present day. This
He
is
had
not a person from 1925.
he had 3 scenes in the movie. He played Timothy Chalamet pretty much. It was just like, oh, I gotta go back to school. And then it was like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's what I'm saying. He seemed like to me like a present day teen.
we're gonna give you an Oscar nom along with the actual co-star of the movie, Jesse Plemons. And the thing is Benedict Cumberbatch didn't shower the whole time he was doing the movie.
I mean, he does a good part. He plays the part.
He
Like,
didn't
well,
talk to Kirsten Dunst the whole time, and he gave himself tobacco poisoning 3 times while working on the movie. He did all of that for a movie that was not good. And I'm just like, and here's my impression of everybody in the movie. Benedict Cumberbatch for 2.5 hours went, you're not here for the right reasons. She just drank a bunch and fell into alleys. Her son was emo and was ready to go back to school. Jesse Plemons was in the bathtub the whole movie going, she's my lover. And then at the very end of the movie, Benedict Cumberbatch was like, I knew a gay cowboy. I'm a gay cowboy. And then that was the end of the movie. That was 2.5 hours.
I'm sorry,
long.
Tom, did you see it? You did, right?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to ruin the whole thing.
That's why I can't. Yeah, I can't really comment on it, but I'll watch it though. I'll check it out.
There was a couple parts, like I felt like everything in that movie happens in the last 10 minutes.
And it's like,
That's why. So when I watched it with my husband, because I thought like Sam Elliott, I thought maybe this was like Westerny. So Steve and I like don't watch a lot of movies together, mainly just because we don't like the same things. Like he would watch. Steve's favorite thing to watch is like, I don't know if you know how often The Patriot comes on cable TV, but it does. That's like Steve's favorite.
Will he come on and talk about The Patriot?
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It makes me forgive Mel Gibson.
He'll watch The Patriot anytime it comes on. He oddly will like also watch the Harry Potter movies, which I don't understand. Like he's never read Harry Potter. Like I think he read like half of one. He also loves like John Wayne. Like he loves like True Grit, like all of that type of stuff. But then he also loves, like The Mighty Ducks, like a nostalgia childhood movie like that.
Fantastic TV show on Disney Plus.
I know we watched it, but Emilio's not going to be on next season. So
I know. COVID,
it's gonna be Josh Duhamel.
Is he playing Gordon Bombay?
No, they've worked out the character.
Okay, good. Good.
Emilio says it's not because of vaccination stuff, but that's the rumor.
Yeah.
Is that Disney won't work with people that aren't vaccinated, and that maybe he isn't.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm most upset with Last Night in Soho not getting one nomination. It was
I
my
didn't see it
favorite.
because I can't do things that are like scary.
It was my favorite movie of last year, and it's a
I
horror
liked the
movie.
look of everything. I wanted to see it for like the fashion, but I was like, I can't
Yeah.
watch this.
Honestly,
The commercial scared me.
It should have definitely gotten a few technical noms, like definitely
Soundtrack. Soundtrack.
Well, yeah. So I think soundtrack, production design. I didn't say cinematography. It looked great.
Costume design. Although
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
a lot of competition.
Costume was
costume
tough.
design.
I thought everyone
Yeah.
was good in that
Yeah.
category.
Oh, yeah.
But no, so I was gonna say is like it's just so hard when like we never watch anything together. We had like a Saturday night where I was like, you know, your child's in bed. It's like you can't go anywhere, so you might as well watch something. And I was like, well, this movie is very highly nominated. Like, can we watch this? I really wanted to watch Tick Tick Boom, and he was like, I don't know. Not that he's like anti-musical, but he just like wasn't specifically interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, let's watch Power of the Dog. I said, I don't think it's a Western, but I think it's like Western adjacent. And but the only thing I knew about was I had heard the thing where Sam Elliott was like, this isn't a Western. I'm like, okay, but like I watched the trailer on Netflix, couldn't tell you what it was about from watching the trailer. I'm like, cowboys, awkward teen, paper flowers. Okay. Like just like those were like the snippets I got, but I'm like, okay, it's Kirsten Dunst's career, you know, moment. Like I've been watching her since like she was in Little Women as a kid. Like, so I was like really happy for her that she finally, I felt like hers was kind of a career Oscar too, just because of like the nature of this part and like just how much work she's done over the years. But so like 10 minutes in, Steve looks at me and he's like, is this it? Is this what's happening? And I'm like, just give it a chance. It gets better, I think. And like, I'm like, it looks nice, doesn't it? And it was just like every 20 minutes or so, he just was like, this is stupid. And I was like, okay, great.
He's never gonna watch a movie with you again after this.
Never.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, he looked at me and he goes, that was a long drawn out road to nothing. I was like, okay. Steve's aunts watched it and turned it off after a half hour. They didn't even care to know how it ended.
I have friends who it took three different sittings to watch it. I think it's funny because like I've also said like Brokeback Mountain was good. We didn't need a remake of Brokeback Mountain. And it's funny because they're not at all similar movies, but it's just funny that like now any movie that's ever made again that has gay cowboys is gonna be like, I like Brokeback Mountain more. Like,
Yeah.
No, you know what it was too about it? It reminded me because I remember thinking that Brokeback Mountain was beautiful and it was well done, but that it was a little slow.
Yep.
And that it went on and that there was like beautiful scenes. Like that's like the parts of it there. It wasn't just like, oh, this is, you know, the only other thing with a gay cowboy, but like it was kind of like the vibe of it. But the other thing that I think is so interesting to remind ourselves about Brokeback Mountain is I was always like, this movie is long. It goes on. It takes a while to get there. Brokeback Mountain is based on a short story. I will never get over that someone can make such a long ass movie
in a
out of a
magazine.
short story.
In a magazine.
In a magazine.
Half a
And I
page
think
in a magazine.
Power of the Dog was also nominated for adapted screenplay. So it's from something to, am I incorrect in thinking, is it also a short story? Like, it's based on something. So that was something I meant to look up.
Whatever it is, I'm going to buy it for Steve for his birthday.
Just cross out dog and write poop. So it says the power of the poop.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause, you know, my husband is an adult. But yes, you know, if you want to talk about career making performance of Australian actors playing US history, like Revolutionary War people, he'll talk to you about The Patriot all damn day.
I own it. I love that movie so much.
Oh my God. You don't even have to own it. It's on all the time.
Heath Ledger. I mean, it's a good cast. Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
I think I was very excited to see. I have not seen Summer of Love yet. I almost went and saw it in theaters one day randomly.
Is that the Questlove one?
Yeah, I didn't know it was up for a nomination. I think it's funny because when Questlove went up on stage, I went, shit, is Questlove going to get an EGOT before Lynn? Like, I was like,
well, I honestly couldn't even tell you what he said because he was the first one after the Will Smith thing.
Yeah.
That was the word that's being
That's
used.
what was sad too, because it was so cool to see him win an Oscar for his own movie he made, and then it's like no one talked about it or anything because of that.
And people asked him later about like what his thoughts were, and he literally was like, you know what, I'm not going to comment about that. I'm really excited about this. Like he had to like,
yeah,
and like what now he's going to get like those questions like the rest of his life. Like it's so frustrating. And again, I think it's frustrating for anyone who got an award in that last hour
when
because
is
it
he
just
gonna have that moment again? I mean, it's like when a set designer goes up there and she's 80 and she's been doing it for 70 years and she gets up and the music starts and she goes, and she goes, when am I gonna be up here again? That was like Questlove. I mean, sure, this could open a lot of doors for him, but like
yeah.
that was his fucking moment. I mean, he made this movie with his bare hands and just fucking made this movie.
Well, even like Jessica Chastain, I thought she gave a great speech. Oh, we haven't talked about her like really at all. I thought she gave a great speech, but it's like, do you remember what she said? I had, again, because I had been looking up trivia about her after I saw Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I had seen the thing saying so her sister committed suicide in 2003. So that was why she mentioned that. And then when she said something about LGBT, I was like, oh, I wonder if like that was part of it. I wonder if she didn't, I don't remember specifically knowing if she was or wasn't, but she has a couple siblings and her youngest one, I think, committed suicide. And I thought she did talk about like someone who really, and again, she was kind of a lock to win. She's won a lot of stuff this season. She did have a lot of time to think about it, but she was to me, it was like Will Smith's speech could have gone that same route had this not happened, where like, she did such a good job of relating the parts of the character she played, the parts of the story to contemporary things. She really like wove that all together, where she was talking about Tammy Faye, like unabashedly, living her life with love and like all this stuff. And she made a really great segue. And I'm like, Will Smith also did a segue like to do this kind of relation. But and it is interesting because you wouldn't necessarily look at a televangelist from like the 80s and 90s and think that they're like, I mean, her husband scammed all those people and she got off scot-free. I don't know enough about like the actual history of it to know if like she knew anything or was part of it. I mean, there's a Real Housewives of New Jersey that went to jail for a year because her husband like had her sign a bunch of stuff for like tax, and they committed like tax fraud basically. So I was like, oh, it's pretty.
I like how you can compare anything to. You're like, oh, West Side Story reminds me of season 3 of Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Oh, it all goes back to Bravo. I said in my Instagram story, I was like, okay, so this Will Smith Chris Rock thing, there was a season of Atlanta Housewives at the reunion where one of the women literally got arrested for like hitting another woman at the reunion, but the other woman was like in her face. She brought a megaphone as like a prop to the reunion, and she literally was like, "You are a dumb hoe," in her face, and she finally like couldn't take it anymore, and she smacked her. And the other woman was crazy enough, and so she pressed charges. And there's a mugshot of her like from the reunion. That was like where my mind went. I was like, I can relate anything back to Bravo. It's just like a special skill that does nothing for you in your life in any way. But yeah, I thought she also gave a great speech, and I feel like it's just kind of like mirror. And it was also interesting too to see the pictures from the day after, because there's always a shot of the 4 actor winners together, but Will Smith skipped the press room. So the pictures are of Ariana DeBose and Jessica Chastain, and his name's Tony, right? Yeah, like together, the 3 of them holding an Oscar. And the only other time I remember seeing a picture like that was when Heath Ledger won for Batman, because he wasn't there. And like it was just like a very weird thing to be like, you're not there because like you don't want to go and answer all these questions right now. I wouldn't. What do you even say? Like what it would have been wild. No one else probably would have gotten to talk about anything. It was probably better that he didn't do the press room.
I was gonna say, I think too that wait, crap, something about Jessica Chastain was like the only person who had a political speech. Like I expected everybody to go up and talk about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Russia. Like nobody said anything about anything else. Like I was very
And she
surprised.
did it in a really nice way that it doesn't get like the people all riled up that think that like actors should just stay out of it, because she was like saying like there's many injustices being done to people right now.
Yep.
I was very happy that we did not get a message from Zelensky. When I never understood if Amy Schumer was kidding about that. Did you see that, where she was saying leading up to it, where they talked to them like, oh, so what's in store for us? A big night. She was saying that she wanted to get him on there to like address the crowd. And I'm like, it's not that I don't think that this man is worthy of hearing from, but I'm like, I think he has bigger fish to fry right now than to come on the Oscars and talk to the, as they like to call them, the liberal Hollywood elite.
He's also an actor and comedian too.
Yeah, so he's like a former comedian.
I think that's why they would have wanted to have him on for like relevancy, but like he's in the middle of the front lines of a war right now.
Seriously. And so I was just like, I couldn't tell if she was kidding or not. And I'm like, if you are kidding, this is kind of in poor taste. And if you're not kidding, then this is just a dumb idea.
Interesting.
And like, I don't think that's like a good way to go. But yeah, I do think in previous years, there's definitely been like a lot more like political stuff like being mentioned. So
I really want to go back and watch The Long Goodbye. It was Riz Ahmed's, I think, second,
yeah.
and he has 3 Oscar noms now because he produced another movie here as well. So I
well, he was
definitely
nominated what last year, the year before for Sound of Metal.
yeah,
Mhm.
was it
Oh, he was
2
so
years
good in that.
ago? Yeah, another movie about ASL. I mean, that kind of started to open the doors too. Is
Where
starting to
he
learn.
he was losing his hearing, so that's why
Yeah.
like I
Yep.
was asking someone about that because I discovered a coworker of mine, his he was telling me that his sister was deaf, and I was like, oh, I had no idea. And he was saying he really liked that movie, and I was like, oh, I was like, do you think it's like weird that like a hearing actor was playing this character? And he's like, well, no, because he goes deaf like throughout the
Yeah,
process. It's
yeah.
not like, they just, but it's interesting because I was reading about Coda, because Coda is based on a French film, that's why it's like adapted screenplay. It's not in like an
I
original
was yeah. I'd read
idea.
that.
And they were saying that some of the criticism of it was that the original one in France, I guess, like multiple actors in it that play the deaf characters were not deaf in real life.
The
And so
director's not deaf, which I was a little surprised by.
I was too, and I was wondering, but I think that was part of the reason why they were so set on making this, like with actual people that like embody these things, because like you had this whole movie that came out like literally about deaf people, and everyone in it is like basically a hearing.
And none of the cast has like cochlears in real life or anything really. I mean, Marley Matlin has always played a deaf character, and like everybody in it I think is deaf and is and I think that's really 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 interesting.
Yeah, and I liked when he got up and he said like this is for the deaf but it's also for like disabled people everywhere.
Yeah,
like because it's a large group that is like totally underrepresented in so many ways.
I'll teach you this real quick. You say hi. So this is hi. My name, which is these two together, is, and then mine is MIKEY.
You spell out the letters.
Which I noticed too while watching Coda is that like, and also watching him give the speech is like, how like, I have a bunch of friends from Mexico from my college, and they'll be talking, in English, and then they won't know a word in English, so they'll say it, in Spanish. And I noticed that when he was up there, and even in the movie, sometimes people who are speaking ASL just spell out the whole word sometimes. Like if I noticed that.
It's crazy to me that I'm like, how do they do this so fast? How do they like, like get all these words out? But I feel bad because the only words I know are the ones that I know, like the baby sign language for.
This is mother, father, colors. This is ready, Tom, for you.
More
I want to make, I would say movies with you.
Oh, what's movies?
That's the only one I don't know. So this is
yeah, I was gonna say, because right now I feel like you're doing like the like charades.
Like, oh yeah, just roll the camera.
Three words. This is
I don't know, maybe that is
right. That's pretty easy one, right?
Yep,
did you look these all up today, Mikey, or did you know some sign language beforehand?
So I didn't want to say this part, but a sophomore year of college, I went to a bookstore going back into college. Like it was that summer, and I bought an ASL book just for fun. And Borat had just came out, so I learned a bunch of Borat in sign language. But I do know like 2 or 3 sentences, and it's a language I've always been super interested in learning. Yeah. And there's different versions of it. I mean, there's like French sign language, and there's yeah. So it's very interesting.
I think some colleges offer sign language as like the language.
Yeah, they do. My college did. I wish I took it. And also people's names. So in like Coda, some people spell out their whole name. Other people have a sign for their name. So like Lindsay might just be like that. It could just be an L, and if that's
you get to make up your own sign for your name.
Yeah, that's cool. And then like other people who are referencing you, who know you,
might use it.
That. Yeah.
And this might seem obvious, but what is, because the audience at the Oscars, did this for some of the awards for Coda. Is that applause?
That's applause and cheering.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
that's their way of doing it, which is really cool seeing everybody do that. I was very surprised that the whole Oscars didn't, and maybe we didn't see it. It was off camera. How was there not an ASL interpreter?
Maybe there was. Maybe they didn't show them, but you'd think that they'd like do themselves the favor and show it.
Because Marley Matlin, she always has an interpreter with her. When she was on the roast, she did the roast, and I can't remember. It might have been Bob Saget. All I know is that I think she had Gilbert Godfrey come out and be her interpreter, but it was like something like that. But she had her interpreter on stage, so when they were accepting the award, the interpreter was in front of the podium signing to the people and stuff.
Oh,
I mean, it would have been in their best interest, I feel like, to do that, but
I have to say, Mikey, too, because you just brought up that. I forget if my roommate mentions, I don't know if he got this joke from his friend or somebody else, but somebody said the only way for Will Smith to correct his wrongs is to have a roast of Will Smith. Hosted by Chris Rock.
I don't think he can relinquish that control at this point.
No, probably not. That'd be amazing if that were the case, but no, I don't think that would ever happen.
I mean, because you do like when people can laugh at themselves, I feel like that's the quickest way to get back in people's like good graces, is to show that like you're like he's done his like kind of apologies now. Maybe do one serious like sit down interview, whether it's with your wife or Oprah, as I've dreamed up, and
Marley Matlin was at the roast of Donald Trump 2011. That is super funny. Yeah, you guys should.
that wasn't that long ago, like in the grand
scheme. No, I was gonna say, were we just asking about Tom?
What? No, I was just mentioning that thing about the roast. There should be a roast of Will Smith.
Oh, I'm surprised that there hasn't been yet. I mean, like Larry the Cable Guy was relevant for like 7 years and got his own roast. Like Will Smith is definitely at some point going to get,
but you have to get people that are going to agree to do it.
Yeah. And like Will Smith is definitely going to get like a Lifetime Achievement Award at Oscars and other things, but I'm surprised he hasn't gotten a roast yet. And roasts, I think, are not going to be as relevant these days.
No, I don't. There's a lot of stuff that is not okay anymore. That was another thing that I thought was a real smack in the face, to have the Lifetime Achievement Award also be given out off camera and like recorded, especially to someone like Samuel L. Jackson. Can't you just see him being like, fuck this? Like, I'm not doing this. And he sat there on the side. They made a couple like jokes at him for like stuff. And I'm like, that to me was so odd. And that wasn't even like, there used to be sometimes where they would show clips from the Creative Arts Emmys of some of like the different categories. Yeah. But like, to not let someone get up there and get their Lifetime Achievement Award, especially
Lifetime Achievement Award,
especially when you had him then get up later to do a stupid little shtick with Pulp Fiction people for a non-milestone anniversary. Again, when we talk about like this show was backwards from the get-go, the slap just like cemented it into the ground and gave people something to talk about. If that hadn't happened, all people would be talking about is that it was a mess. The producers might have been done a favor, because I feel like people are less focusing on the messiness of the show.
Yeah.
Because of that. And that's why there's also those conspiracy theorists that still think that this was all on purpose, that this was all staged. That have you seen like the pictures of him? Because it was weird too, is like did you see the tweet where someone's like, we have more angles on this than like the JFK assassination, like you can see this from every view. And I saw a thing, and again, I'm not saying I believe in this, but like I saw a thing where people were saying that, Jared Leto just came on my TV and he is looking more and more like Jesus H. Christ every day.
Morbius.
Oh, is that what's happening? He looks like a legit, like, I don't know if you guys know this, because you're probably not followers of like influencer culture, but there's a whole subset of influencers that are like known as like the Mormon mommy bloggers. Because, there's a lot of like wealthy Mormons. These girls procreate like wildfire, have like 4 kids by the time they're 30. They're all gorgeous and put together. They live in these giant blank houses that their contractor husbands build somehow in Utah, and all their kids are perfect and nothing is ever messy and whatever. There's this thing where a lot of them have this really, really big painting of like a very kind of hot, modern looking Jesus in their house, like a big painting. I'm gonna have to find a picture of it and send it to you just so you understand what I'm talking about. Jared Leto to me is becoming that painting right now. It's a lot of times like from behind, like in the water. And it's just like it doesn't go with like any of like the rest of their aesthetic, but they all seem to have it. And I'm just looking at him and I'm like, you have become a Jesus painting.
I've real quick, I've been to Salt Lake City a few times, Park City, Utah, which are I went to Sundance one day for an afternoon. They're both just magical places. And everywhere you go in Salt Lake City, every single house is at least 3 floors, because it's all separated. So anywhere you're driving, it's pretty much like 3 floors, and you don't look at it as like, oh, they're wealthy and they have a 3-floor house. You look at it as those are 3 separate houses in one house, because it's the man moves between the 3 floors of the house
Oh,
for his
that's if they
different.
have like multiple wives.
Yeah.
The
which
ones
is
I'm talking about are just like they just get married real young. They all wear dresses with sleeves because you have to, like in the temple.
like
And
the 2 women on Dancing with the Stars,
but
Whitney
they're not
and
polygamous.
no, but they're like Mormons who grew up like in the Mormon
Yes.
lifestyle, and yeah.
Well,
who are the
Julianne Hough
very-
and Derek Hough were Mormons also. Sorry, I know we've really derailed from the
that makes
Really
sense.
taken it down.
They're super
But,
weird.
What I was gonna say something else about before Jesus came up. I don't remember. But so one of the things that I'd seen, there's a picture of like Chris Rock as he's about to get slapped, and a lot of people are saying that like you can tell he's bracing for impact. He recovered from it so quickly. Like his hands are clenched like this because like a lot of people are saying that like you can read his body language and tell that he knew it was coming.
I saw that. Like body language experts and like martial arts experts have looked at the slap, and I'm just
No,
like,
and honestly, one giveaway too that like I know it's not fake is the way Chris had to like readjust after that. Like he was like
It took a minute.
yeah,
Like
and you can
there was
see
a
like
beat.
he scanned like the room, like you could, that's not fake, like no way.
he was probably in more shock than pain, just like what just
Yeah,
happened?
definitely.
Yeah.
That's the thing
I
is
don't
like
think he was like severely injured.
no, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like the thing about a slap, like a slap is just disrespectful. Like if you get like if anything, getting slapped is more embarrassing than being punched.
It's
'Cause-
kind
Yeah.
of like I challenge you to a duel. Like you might as well have done it with like a glove. Like in the olden days. Like,
yeah.
wasn't that a thing where you like slap a man with your glove? And you're like, let's take this outside.
Can you imagine that today? Like a bar fight in Boston where 2 people are fighting over like Red Sox versus Yankees, and somebody just slaps somebody with their glove.
Yeah.
That would be, we should settle more things that way. An innocent glove, like you just get a little like snap out of it, like share
Yeah.
style.
Oh, actually, I gotta say one thing too. The one person that's probably like actually really happy about all the attention on Will Smith and Chris Rock is Jane Campion, because she made that comment about Venus and
That was
Serena.
bad.
Yeah, that was very
You have a
bad.
comment
So
about what? What happened?
Not at the Oscars. She did it at another award show.
yeah, I forget exactly what she said, but she accepted an award like a couple weeks ago, and I don't know it verbatim, but she basically Venus and Serena were there, and she's like, I know you guys had like a hard upbringing with men. She's like, but I've had a little harder like situation myself.
And
like,
she was trying to compare like being, the only female director among a group of men. And it's like, well, that's not really the same as like growing up in Compton.
yeah, it was a really really weird comparison.
It was seen as being like very out of touch, I think, and like she did apologize for it later because she was like, I think she basically said like that didn't come out how I hoped it
Weird.
would. Like,
yeah, definitely. So
and there were some people that thought that maybe those are the Critics' Choice Awards. There were some people that thought that maybe that might hurt her chances of winning, but someone said like how I love they do all those articles where they're like a voter shared with us their picks. There's like 9,000 people in the Academy now, so it's like that one voter like doesn't speak for everybody, just like these 2 men don't speak for like whatever. So someone said like someone said not giving it to the only woman out of 5 directors would have been a bigger non-PC statement like to make.
Really?
She said, so it says, during her acceptance speech for Best Director at Critics' Choice, Campion noted her admiration for the Williams sisters, who are the subject and producers of King Richard, but said that unlike in their tennis careers, she has had to compete against men. Like they were saying, like they have to compete against women as like tennis players. And she said, "You're such marvels," she addressed the siblings. "However, you don't play against the guys like I have to."
yeah,
Directing is not a thing of strength and like endurance.
No, and do you know who Jodie Turner-Smith from Queen and Slim? She's married to Joshua Jackson now. They're like gorgeous, like just one hot couple.
Yeah.
I love Pacey, and he's one of those that's like a little gray. He's gotten like better with age. He's so cute. Anyways, she tweeted Jane taking time out of her Best Director speech to tell 2 Black women that she is more oppressed than they are is like peak white feminism. And like it's just like
Wow.
I just look at these people sometimes and I'm just like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. thank every single person that helped you with your movie. Like, don't say anything. If you can't be trusted to say something not stupid, then just don't do it. Like,
to go back into the vault real quick, Queen and Slim got snubbed for a lot of fucking Oscars.
You think?
Have you guys,
that is one from the vault.
have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to remember what year it came out. Like 2 years ago?
2019, I think.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was like right before COVID. It was like
I don't think it got one nomination, did it?
I don't think so.
It should have been
I mean,
nominated.
I remember
for
hearing a lot of
Oscars.
like critical acclaim about it, but I don't think that it got any like awards.
It was like absolutely phenomenal as a movie. It was.
All right, well, we're
so
gonna have to
good.
follow up on a few things after this. Number 1, Jesus painting. Number 2,
I'm sorry, but
any awards, even
I'm sorry, but Jared Leto is like my messiah. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. I've seen 30 Seconds to Mars twice. They're great live. He set the record for the longest a band has ever toured in 1 year. The band toured for like 246 days. And then they came back and he did Dallas Buyers Club and won the Oscars for it. I mean, like,
which is wild because I don't feel like that would fly now. Imagine hiring a non-trans actor for that part now. Like, again, just talking about how something's gonna change. I'm not denying that Jared Leto is a great actor.
yeah.
But like when you talk about representation of like how many trans actors there probably are wanting a role like that.
Well, Eddie Raymond got heat for that too. And that was only 2 years after Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
Oh, it was? I don't even see like all of this. It's like I feel like after this pandemic, I'm like, I say after, I don't know if we're still in it. I'm not sure. But what is time anymore? Like, I don't know.
I ask myself that every day.
That, when I first heard the nominations for Best Actress, I immediately, just from like not having seen a single film, but just from hearing their names, I'm like, I'm going for Chastain because Penelope Cruz, Nicole Kidman, and Olivia Colman all had like relatively recent Oscars, and Kristen Stewart, I just can't stand for reasons that we've already mentioned. And I saw Spencer and I still don't think she deserves even a nomination. So I'm just like shocked that she squeaked her way in there. But from the get-go, I was like, Jessica Chastain. I was like, those 3 other women need another Oscar. Like, I need a hole in the head. I think, again, Jessica Chastain's given us, I think, great work over the past like 10 years. 3rd nomination. Like, I think she's great in everything she's in, whether it's like a movie like The 355, where it's just like, you know, like a kick-ass, like whatever, or if it's something serious, or like The Help. Like, I loved her even when she like came out in The Help. But I said somewhere, I was like, oh my God, Nicole Kidman like just won an Oscar within like the past 10 years. I had to look it up. It was 19 years ago. It was in 2003. And so I was like, oh, like I have truly no concept of like, now I feel like when some of those things happened. So that's why I'm like, when did Queen and Slim come out? When did the Danish Girl come out? Like, I don't remember any of this, like as far as like in terms of what year those were.
Do you think you'll ever forget Slap? Or is it going to be like 20 Oscars from now and you'll be like, I remember the exact day?
You know, it's funny because I remember like the Moonlight La La Land thing, but I don't remember now that I'm thinking about it, like what year that was.
Me either. No idea. I want to say 5 years
I was living
ago.
on Nantucket.
2017.
I want to say 17? Okay.
Hey, I got it. 5 years ago. Nice.
And like, I remember certain things. Like I remember Chicago because like, I know I was a senior in high school and I remember it was like a big thing. So there's like little things like that. I remember, it's funny because Vanity Fair always does before the Oscars, they do like a look back at the Oscars 20 years before. So they just did a retrospective on like the year 2002.
Oh, cool.
And they just like talk about different things. But there was one, did you ever read, there was an article, maybe it was Vanity Fair, I can't remember if it was something else, but talking about like the year 2000 being like the perfect year of films.
The year 2000?
It's like a mixture of like prestigious ones like American Beauty and The Talented Mr. Ripley and like things like that, but also like good like teen movies, even like I think like Virgin Suicides and like different things like that. And it's this whole thing just looking at like what was it that year that like so many like good movies came out of and how like there hasn't been a year like that since.
I feel like 99 and 2000 are both amazing years.
It was 99 or it was 2000, but it was one of those.
Maybe it was 99 because because American Beauty was 99. And,
was it then? It's always confusing.
Oh, and The Matrix, Office Space. There's so many movies.
Yeah, it was stuff like
Fight
that.
Club.
I think it's interesting too because it's always so hard to remember because those movies come out one year, but then the Oscars is always at the beginning of the next year. So like people talk about like, you know, we're talking Oscars 2022, but most of those movies came out in 2021. So like it's always a little bit hard for me to like remember and associate like the correct year with like what actually happened.
Like when you're saying like 20th century or 19th century, it's always the century. You're
I
always
have
talking.
to ask myself that every
Yeah.
Yep.
But it does make me wonder all the time. I'm like, why can't we do this as a fiscal year, like or calendar year, or whatever it is? Like,
Yeah.
is there no reason that we can't do movies from January 1 till December 31st? Like,
Imagine
why?
having the Oscars like on New Year's Eve or like
Maybe
at the
that's
end of the
why,
year.
or even like do it first week of January with like
I
the
would love that.
countdown from like
That's
the
my
end of the
birthday.
year.
I would love that.
I just think like I remember always like being like when I was younger, I was like, oh, it's great because it was always during like February vacation. So I could like stay up late. I used to literally like take the day off after the Oscars. You know how people like call in sick after the Super Bowl? Like the Super Bowl is the most like used like day for sick days of like anywhere like in this country. And because people, it's like, but it's the same thing for us. It's like you stay up late, you're chit-chatting about it online, you may be going to like a party or something. I just think that the amount of people that watch the Oscars is so much fewer. But like I treat it like when you say like I always treat the Oscars as like my Super Bowl. And I at a previous job, they were very like lax about us switching around like our time off. So I would save my President's Day holiday and just like use it the Monday after the Oscars. I was like, I just need a day.
Just how the presidents
Dedicated.
would have wanted it.
Yeah, because I would be like, I'm gonna write a blog post about it. I'm gonna stay up real late tweeting about it. I'm gonna be so tired. Like,
So
and I would literally act like I was there or something, that I was like, oh, I gotta take the next day off. It's just so much.
So you've mentioned Twitter a lot tonight. Are you still very active on Twitter just around these kind of ceremonies?
No, I was thinking that yesterday. I literally went onto my Twitter and I was like, oh my God, the last time I was on was like the Oscars last year. I was never like the most active on Twitter. I think Twitter works really well for certain people that have great, quick, short thoughts. As you might be able to tell from this evening, I don't accomplish a lot of things in a short amount of characters. So like it's a little too, I need something a little more long form. But I love using it during award shows because I like to be a part of conversations with people about things that I'm interested in that I wouldn't normally have in real life. And that's where I think Twitter is the best for things like that, for a live event. I would always go on Twitter like during an event of any kind, even like the Super Bowl halftime show or whatever. But I
used to live tweet the Bachelor premieres and finales too.
It's hard. And I think especially when you have kids, it's like your time becomes so precious. So it's like, that's why I don't like, I go on TikTok occasionally because I do think that there are very creative things happening on there. I think there's a whole new generation of like, the next generations like filmmakers are probably learning how to make things and edit things on TikTok. And I don't think that you can deny that just because we're older and we don't immediately sometimes get it. I know a lot of the things I watch on TikTok, I appreciate. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is everyone of this generation like funny? And also they can dance really well and also is really good at applying their makeup. Like, I just feel like they're so much more advanced than we were at that age.
All at once?
All at once.
Yeah.
I'm like, TikTok is really good with their crazy algorithm at knowing what you want to see. Because when I first got on it during the pandemic, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to see teenagers in crop tops, like doing some sort of like inappropriate dance. And now what's on there is like things I want. It is like before and after room makeovers. It's like, showing how to put together like outfits with like the things you already have in your closet. It's like making a meal that I will never make, but it looks pretty good, so like it does get to know you really, really well.
I was gonna say,
Jessica Chastain is actually very good on TikTok. She does a lot.
I beat the Instagram algorithm because it's all pugs and cute women now. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So I would say like Instagram is my number one. I tried to do a lot of stuff on my stories during like the Oscars and leading up to it. Every time I watched a movie, I was like, okay, I got on here. But the day of the Oscars, I think I literally maxed out. You're only allowed to post 100 stories a day or 100 stories at once. I think I maxed out.
Were these your stories or like sharing other stories?
I share a couple things, but it was a lot of like my stuff being like, okay, I'm getting ready for the day. Like, because like, and again, not that I have this huge following, but people that know me, that have known me for a while, like know how much I care about this stuff. And so like, the whole week before I was like posting about anytime I had like finally watched a film or like whatever. So yeah, like Twitter is only good if I can sit and pay attention. When I was watching this weekend, I had said to Steve, I was like, the Oscars are this day. Will you please take the child and the dog and like watch them for the day, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else? And he was like, sure. So he took them to his mom's house for like the entire day.
And what's his Oscars? The NHL
Stanley Cup, probably.
Stanley Cup, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I would say and oh no, more than that even. I mean, he's a huge hockey fan. He has season tickets for the Bruins, but the Olympics. Steve's obsessed with the Olympics.
I hate the Olympics so much.
That's so funny because I hear that your mom is obsessed with the Olympics.
Yeah, our moms are obsessed with Apollo. who is now a commentator.
And Nathan Chen, your mom loves a skater.
Okay. Oh yeah. She's been talking about him. Yeah, and now
So,
Apollo's all,
she loves a worldly
Apollo's
skater.
all
Those
old
guys
and
are American.
retired. One of the reasons I hate the Olympics is my parents and I went to New York City in high school. It was my first time going to New York City, and we went to visit 30 Rock, and we went to go do an SNL tour. And all we got to see was like the props that were on display. We didn't get to go see the actual studio or anything. It was all being used for Olympic coverage, and I hate it because like I'll love shows that are on ABC or NBC, and then they just go on hiatus for like 3 weeks while we watch people fucking ski and shoot from a very skinny gun or fucking play badminton. Or
I get really bored with it after a while just because Steve has it on like 24/7, and the worst is when it's in a really unhelpful time zone, because like he will be a zombie because it's on for like 14 days or something like crazy. And like he will watch it like every hour, and Steve can get by with like very little sleep. Like he's kind of like you, he goes to bed real late. He's like, I've been preparing to be a father my whole life. I can survive on nothing. Like he could go to bed at 1 and wake up at 6 and be like, okay, I'm good.
That's what I do.
And it's just, but like eventually to catch up with him, I always find at the end of the Olympics, he's like truly dead. And like, because he's even like at work watching it on like the NBC app on his phone, he's staying up to watch certain things. And I'm like, when they're in other time zones, they're always going to re-show the good stuff during prime time. Like just watch it. And he prefers winter over summer. But also it's been tough because the past like 2 years because of COVID, we had 1 year after another of Olympics. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Cause like literally I can't get near the TV. Like I can't do anything. I'm like, I need my stories. Like, and sometimes like Bravo goes on hiatus because they're an NBC affiliate. And sometimes they even show Olympic stuff on Bravo. And I'm like, again, like the Oscars, I'm like, know your audience. The people that are watching this, we're not watching the Olympics. We don't care.
Yeah.
Give me my housewives. Like, so I always get frustrated like that where I'm like, do these people do focus groups anymore? Like, does anyone know who they're pandering to here? Like,
there should be an Olympics for watching the Olympics. Like I could imagine Steve at the end of it being like, "Ugh, feel like one of
Steve's favorite games is for you to quiz him on certain years and what cities the Olympics were in that year."
Oh, that's kind of fun.
So you could be like winter 1964.
Wait, you're gonna have to tell Steve this. So I think it was maybe 2002 or something. But when I was out in Park City, Utah, one time, I went.
Oh, did you go to the Village?
I went to the Village. I went tubing down one of like the practice ski jumps, not the actual ski jump. I looked down at a ski jump, which is the scariest view I've ever had in my life, just looking straight down at it. And then I went bobsledding on the actual bobsled track that they used in the Utah
bobsledding
Olympics.
is Steve's favorite. He loves bobsled.
It was the scariest thing I've ever done. Like, I'm not a rides person at all. I hate rides.
I'm not a risk taker.
When I'm at a place, I'm like, when will I be back here? Let's go balls to the walls. And we did it. It was you can do it in the winter on ice. We did it in the summer on wheels. And the driver is a professional bobsled rider who literally does it. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. It was over in 60 seconds, which maybe felt like 4 seconds.
Yeah, but it's like all physics. You look at this and you're like, how do you not flip yourself over? I told him, I was like, we should probably go to something when it's in LA, because when else are like, how often does America have a chance to host the Olympics? Because they pick cities that make no sense. Do you remember when they were trying to get it to be in Boston? It's like,
oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
An idiot.
Yeah, they tried making Hollywood East. They wanted to make like Hollywood and Boston, and even that was like 40 miles outside of Boston.
Yeah, so Steve's like, I hate LA, I hate California, I don't want to go there. And I'm like, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of chances to like, it's like anywhere else the Olympics is going to be is going to cost $1 bajillion to get there. I was like, so this might be like your like the best way that you're going to do this like in your lifetime.
You'll have to buy flights now and hotels to
I know, right?
Like, yeah.
But anyways, it's Tom, where do you live? I didn't even like ask you that.
San Diego.
Oh, okay. So you are not on our coast.
No.
Not 12:30 for you.
Tom's just getting the night started. Tom's gonna tour the Dolby Theater and upload it to our Instagram account.
Yeah, right.
I had a really good time, even though it is like literally like $20 or $30 for like a half-hour tour.
I might do it because I've done tours in LA. I've done the only one I've ever done, I think, is Warner Brothers, which was awesome.
I was debating when I went the one time with my mom, my sister, between Paramount and Warner Brothers. I ended up going with Paramount because it's more classic stuff, and Warner Brothers is a lot more, it seems like superhero.
Yeah.
you know, like that kind of
There's a lot,
I
yeah,
don't
a
think
lot of
that's
DC
the
stuff.
work that
It was cool. Though.
like
I got to walk around the Gilmore Girls set. That was cool.
that is very cool. But yeah, the
You're
Paramount Tour is
you're
great because
such a
it was like
Rory.
what'd you say?
I said Tom's such a Rory.
Such a Rory. Yeah.
I've never seen Gilmore Girls, but I believe that's one of the characters' names.
It is.
Okay.
I've only seen a few
Watch
episodes of it,
Gilmore
but
Girls with me.
it was still
You can
cool.
get into it. I would recommend if you get the chance and want something to do, the Paramount Tour. There is a 4-hour version, so for someone like you, you'd probably actually appreciate it. I don't know how things are now in COVID, but it was one of those where like you drive around on a little tram,
Yeah,
and like
yep.
the guides are kind of like the pages at like NBC. Like they're super knowledgeable, and they wear like a nice little blazer, and they have a whole room with Oscars in it that you can look at. They're behind glass, and they have a lot of stuff to like read ahead of time. But then, like I said, I did the 2-hour version, and it was great. There was like a bunch of stuff like just drive around. I mean, they literally showed us there was one parking spot that just had the letters like DW there, and they're like, that's Denzel's. He has his own parking spot, like inside the lot, like not even the regular parking lot where they walk and then go in. And so, I mean, the show that we got to go and like sit in the theater for was like Dr. Phil, but they showed us a lot of like historical stuff. They showed us like you know, things from like Cheers and I Love Lucy and like stuff like that. So, but I'm also curious to know because they did also advertise a nighttime tour that kind of was framed as like a ghost tour where you like walk around with flashlights. And I think you learn about maybe like spookier stuff. But then there was also like a film buff 4-hour version that I'm curious about. But yeah, you can also then do, and I did one of the like cheesy celebrity bus tours when I was there, which is fun in a way because you do get to drive around and see stuff. But I was very upset because our driver gave us so much factually incorrect information that I was like, this is a joke. This was in 2016. We're driving by, and again, they could be telling you these are people's houses. I have no idea. But we're driving by a house and he's like, oh, this is where Gwen Stefani lives. And I was like, okay, cool. We're all like looking outside, whatever. And he was like, yep. And Gwen Stefani, you know, it was recently announced that she and her boyfriend, Blake Shelton, are having a baby. Okay. It is 2022. They still have not had a baby. Like, I don't remember. I was like, it felt to me like he was reading everything out of like an In Touch, like any remote, like tabloid. And as somebody who, like I said, like if it's not people, I don't believe it. I'm like, that's not true. And I was just like sitting there. So I will say like the other tours are definitely more official. You get a lot more information of them that's like legit, but those bus tours are it's the Wild West. Like they're just
Oh yeah.
I'd love to
it was
visit.
fun to drive around and see all the like fancy houses.
I'd love to visit film sets because film sets are so interesting to me, like the ones that like are recycled and reused. And they're like, hey, if you watch Back to the Future, you'll notice this clock was also used in these 6 other movies. And like some studios and stages have never been taken down. And I'm just like, how? There's so many TV shows being made. How's that just preserved in that one spot?
Oh,
like,
there's that at the Paramount Theater. It's like the first thing when you walk in off the parking lot. It's literally like a tank, basically. And they show you while you're there, they have like an iPad and they'll bring up scenes from the movies to show you. And like the 10 Commandments was filmed there, and they show you how they did it with the water splitting. But they also use that for like Star Trek. They showed a clip of like Chris Pine like flying through the air or something, like a little helmet on, and like literally like it's almost like green screen style, like they filmed him in that tank like doing it. So like that one tank has been being used since like the dawn of movies.
Interesting. That's
to
super
film stuff.
cool.
And so that was what they showed, that like because if you watch like the 10 Commandments, like it's actually they filled it with water and then they just did it in reverse. So they had like, because back in the day that was like their version of special effects. They have like it separated, and they like poured water in so that it went on either side to look like the sea was like parting, but they just like played it backwards so that it looked like the water was like, so that it looked like he was going like this and like the water parted. So they show like stuff like that like, again, if you care, and my mom and my sister aren't like so into this stuff, but like they were able to follow along and enjoy it enough for like a 2-hour version.
I'd be so touristy. Tom, I need to come visit you at some point. I've never been to LA.
San Diego is so beautiful too. I loved San Diego. The downtown there is so fun.
Oh yeah, there's so many cool spots here. It's a city that doesn't. It feels like 50 different cities all like merged together.
I mean, the downtown part is very like clean and.
Oh yeah.
I thought like the area where all the restaurants are and like the baseball field is like really nice.
Tommy's originally from Massachusetts as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've moved around a
Where in
lot these past 4 years.
Yeah. Where in Massachusetts are you from?
Berkeley, which is like southeast, down near Fall River and Dighton area.
Oh yeah, okay. My sister-in-law is from did you say oh you said Fall River? I was saying my sister-in-law is from New Bedford. Kind of in that
yeah,
area.
right next to
I live
Fall
in
River.
I'm from New Hampshire originally, but I live in Rhode Island now, so I'm like not far from
Oh, okay.
the border of
Yeah.
Massachusetts. I'm like right over that line of like Attleboro, so I'm like
Oh yeah, yeah.
pretty close to Massachusetts.
Yeah, I used to live probably like 20 minutes from there, not even.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mikey, you're in Natick, Framingham?
Framingham. Yep.
I used to live around there too. Well, I didn't live there, but I worked at the Natick Mall for 4 years.
Oh yeah. How close are you to Providence?
17 minutes.
Do you like Bon Iver?
I like that song Exile on the Taylor Swift album.
That is a phenomenal song. I have tickets to go see him there in June. I'm looking for somebody to go, but
Where in Providence?
It's an outdoor venue. I'm not too sure. Yeah.
I know there's also a lot of good restaurants in Providence. I love Providence.
I haven't been to Providence in forever. Yeah, I love
who
it
else
there.
lives there? Hannah's stepbrother, Jameson, who's a little weird. He lives in Providence.
Oh, hopefully he doesn't
Jameson?
listen. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this episode of the podcast.
I doubt he will. Don't you cut some stuff out?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Well, maybe cut this part.
We're
I don't know if
making
anybody cares to hear us talking about the Olympics and like every Hollywood celeb tour. I don't think Steve cares about Bon Iver, else I would say like you guys should go together. But wait, when are you going, in June?
Yeah, June 12th or something. Yeah.
Steve will be around, but I will be gone that weekend. I have tickets to see Hugh Jackman and the Music Man on Broadway.
Oh, nice.
My God.
And Sutton Foster.
Do you think Ryan Reynolds will show up?
Why? Those two just like always are like
Yeah.
on
He'll
each
show
other.
up and like boo him in the beginning and it'll be a shtick or something. Yeah.
I mean, considering they're doing this like 8 shows a week, probably not. But also that's how much Broadway performers perform. They do 8 shows a week. But they have one day off. So one day they do like a matinee or something.
Jeez.
I also had these tickets from before COVID. So it's like
wow.
It's been scheduled like 3 times.
I just bought my first 2 concert tickets. Scouras at the Bosch Wing Theater in Boston, and then Bon Iver, and then I have a whole list on my phone of just concerts that I want to go to over the next couple months.
I think I've passed that point in my life. Not because of COVID, but just because I don't like standing for a long period.
I'll never be over concerts. I've gotten good at my age where like I'll go on Facebook the night before and I'll find out when the band I'm going for is going to be on stage. So I show up exactly when they're going on. And then I look at their set list from the tour on that tour that they've done. So I know whether or not to stay for the encore because I know exactly what they're going to be playing. Yeah.
Years ago, I got Steve tickets for like a acoustic, like kind of unplugged performance by Rob Thomas at Mohegan Sun.
Heck yeah. How was it?
Steve, it was great. It was awesome. Steve really liked like Matchbox 20 in high school. And I remember it was the first time we went in and like it was like one of their smaller theaters at Foxwoods. And everyone was like our age and above, and they were all like everyone was sitting in their seats. And I remember at the end of the show, Steve and I were like, man, I'm never standing at a concert ever again. Like I'm not going to another concert where I have to stand. Like,
most of them you don't. Most have seats and you can.
It was really nice. But and Steve has gone to see Newfound Glory like 14 times. Like,
wait, will he go with me this summer?
Are they coming here?
They're always here. Yeah.
His brother is obsessed, and his brother's 8 years younger than us. Like, because he grew up driving around in the car with Steve playing Newfound Glory.
I've
like
seen Newfound Glory so many times too. That's so funny.
God. Even Anthony went to see them in North Carolina. Like they've gone all over. Anthony has like sweatshirts. Like he's obsessed. So, but Steve's like, yeah, it's great now because when you go, everyone there is like a dad.
So they're doing a really, really big concert at the Palladium on Saturday, June 4th with tons of bands.
Oh, we won't be here. We're going to Chicago that weekend.
Damn.
We're actually figuring out, but yes, anytime you need to see Newfound Glory.
I always see Newfound Glory when they're around here. Wait, tell Steve that the Wallflowers and Matchbox 20 are going on tour this summer too.
They are?
I'd go see Matchbox 20 and Wallflowers.
My dad had that Wallflowers album.
Yeah, I like them. They're good.
That was that's a real throwback. What's the other one he's seen? Steve used to go see Dropkick Murphys all the time, like back when he was in college.
Of course he did. So
I think
Boston.
he's seen them like 12 times.
Silva. I like Flogging Molly way more, but Dropkick.
They also did our spring fling one year at Plymouth State, and
Dropkick.
huh?
Dropkick.
Yeah, I have a picture with the lead singer. I got to interview him for the newspaper because they told me that I was one of the few people they could trust not to be completely wasted at spring fling. So they let me interview him for the paper that year, and I used that clip in like all of my like job applications for like everything that I was applying to, you know, in the 2007 when print was dying and I was like graduating with a degree in journalism. I'm like, well, I did one time interview the lead singer of Dropkick Murphys.
That's funny.
It's like,
yeah,
if you live here, who hasn't?
I've seen them a few times. They're good.
Anyways, I have to go to bed. I'm so tired.
I was gonna say if we
do we need to record an outro or do you guys do that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say we'll do the outro. Lindsay, thank you for coming on our podcast talking Oscars. We did not get to talk about what we've been watching and you know what we're excited.
This is all I've been watching.
No, that's all right because we had a lot of good stuff to talk about, which is great. And you know, I know you talked about your Instagram account, Legally Linz. Do you have
nothing to do with legal advice of any kind?
Just a lawyer enthusiast. That's all.
I just have a passion like Kim Kardashian for the law.
She follows the law. But I know you said that you were thinking about restarting your blog. Is there a blog that we should check out for, you know, stuff?
I do have a blog. It's called Lindsay's Look. I think, God, is that bad? I can't even remember. Okay. I think it's spelled Lindz because Lindsay was taken by a makeup artist. But it is like .com. And I believe there is a link to it in my Instagram, but I'm definitely the most active on Instagram.
Well, thank you for coming on. We look forward to next year being in the same Facebook chat, doing the same brackets. And I think that we should just do this every year after the Oscars. Have you on?
I mean, you don't have to convince me. I'm here.
Yes, I know. I was like, hey, Lindsay, you want to be on? You're like, yeah, you don't have to ask me. I'm like, cool.
I can't believe you asked my sister first. She literally, when I tried to put on West Side Story, her and Hannah were staying over here. I put on West Side Story and like, we made it 45 minutes. And Becky was like, this is boring.
I didn't ask her for this. I didn't ask her for the Oscar one.
No, I'm just surprised she got asked period to talk about movies before I did.
Oh yeah. No, it was a beauty pageant one. And
considering that her favorite film is like SpongeBob.
those movies are really good in 3D.
Just kidding. Her actual favorite movie is League of Their Own. So if you ever needed someone to talk about that, that's
we had her and Max on. So now we're gonna have Hannah on. I mean, Hannah used to be in the film industry, so that'll be fun.
She did. She scene painted on bunch of Ben Affleck movies. Shocker. Shutter Island.
Oh, cool.
That Scorsese did. She did The Women, The Town, I think.
Cool.
Bunch of those. Grown Ups 2, maybe.
Of course.
I can't tell you if she's seen any of these movies, but she worked on them.
In Gloucester. Yep. Yeah.
What was the one in Gloucester? The Proposal? I don't know if she worked on that one. Oh. The Proposal, you know, that was filmed in Gloucester, but it's supposed to be Alaska, right?
No.
Yeah. If you watch it again now, since you're, you know, on a Gloucester kick. Yep. If you watch it, it's on like TBS sometimes. You'll notice that everything looks exactly like Gloucester, but with like a bunch of mountains like superimposed in the background. But all the little houses and the docks are all very Gloucester.
Movie magic.
Yes, cheaper than Alaska.
That's interesting.
Yes, and then, you know, let me know if you ever want to schedule Steve to talk about the Patriot, because he would love nothing more.
And we'll definitely let you know when this episode goes live as well.
Yay, awesome. All right, well, I had so much fun. Thank you guys for having me on and letting me
infiltrate
and talk about a lot of things that I'm sure you don't normally talk about.
We'll let you know.
I can't wait to hear it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.